All right, guys, it's Mac McAdams here for our first podcast slash YouTube drag cycling cars with our first guest, none other. I couldn't imagine anybody better to be here than somebody that does exactly both, Rob Superman Hunnicutt. And I appreciate you for being here. Thank you so very much. We'll just get it started with basically asking you, how did you get into drag racing? A lot of people know you, so before you answer that, I'm going to guess, and you can clarify, probably been racing 30, couple years, fair to say?
Since I was 16.
So longer than that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we're not going to put a date on you.
37, I'm 54, so
There you go. So
38 years.
Yeah, longer than I can even imagine. So, just explain to myself, because I personally know, but I don't know if the viewers or the listeners know exactly how did you decide to get into racing. Was your father into racing? Uncle, brother, cousin?
No, my father had, he had like 68 Chargers, and he had Chevy 2s, Chevelles, things like that. And I remember them as a kid, but I would hear the stories about them racing. My grandmother used to tell a story about where they all went and bought Falcons. Him and two of his buddies bought 3 Falcons at Ford dealership up there.
Is this hence where the Ford love comes from?
No. The Ford stuff just came from the Mustangs and stuff of in the 80s. When my first car was a Camaro, only because I couldn't find a Mustang.
Fox body.
So when I was 14 years old, I started looking to buy a car.
Yeah.
My dad wasn't going to give me any money, so he was like, "Look, you're going to work." So I got a job. Rode my bike up to Pizza Hut in Clinton. I would work there in the evenings, ride home, go to school, work for him during the summer, and then started looking in the paper. Back then, nowadays kids, nobody realizes that you used to just pick up the Washington Post and look in there and go in the classified section and find cars. Well, when I was a kid, growing up, I'd ride around the truck with my dad. He would always get a newspaper. At lunch, he would read the newspaper or something. So I would always look in the classifieds. Okay. And you'd see 69 Mach 1s, 69 Camaros. Every kind of car that is today, like, rare. People just would love to have one. Yeah. Was they were a dime a dozen in the classifieds. Sure. So like I was looking for a Mustang, couldn't find one, and I found a 1967 Camaro, and it was in Greenbelt at an apartment project. So we always did a bunch of work for apartment projects. Yeah. And
in the glass company.
Yeah. So my dad I called the guy, and it happened to be one of the apartment projects that we do work at. Wow. So I asked my dad, I was begging him, let's just go look at it. We didn't have any work there, but he was like, "You're not going to buy this car." And I'm like, "Dad, I'm telling you, I got money saved. Let's go look at it." Yeah. Well, I bought a 1967 Camaro. Okay. With a 400 small block. Wow. 4-speed, 410 gears in it. Okay. For $1,000.
Wow! If you only kept that car.
Right, and that was the thing when I got it, I was 15.
$1,000 solid as far as especially back then.
It needed a little bit of work. It needed a paint job, so I ended up I got this thing and just instantly started working on it in our driveway. So every day I'd come home doing something. Yeah. And I ended up, as soon as I could drive it. Actually, before I even got my license, my dad was out of town. And I was staying at my grandmother. We lived there, and there was nobody home. So a couple of my friends had come over, and I was like, I'd start the car, but I wasn't even supposed to do anything with nobody was home. Yeah. So I fired the thing up, and everybody's, we're sitting there, and I'm revving it up and everything, and I don't know what, all of a sudden a light bulb, no one's home. I'm gonna do a burnout out in the street. Yeah. So I take it down the end of the street, turn around. Well, as I'm turning around, I back into, needless to say, a brand new I guess it was probably like 84, 85 Mustang.
You actually hit the Mustang.
I actually backed into it. Oh my
God.
Knocked the taillights out of it. Well, I freak. Yeah. I put this thing in first, and I just slam it. I'm coming down the street sideways. Okay. Yeah. I get up in my driveway, and of course the lady from down the street
sees it all.
Yeah, she comes out, pulls down there, and there's nobody home. She's like, "I'm going to call the police." So I'm sweating bullets. My grandmother pulls in the driveway.
Okay, yeah.
And she's like, what's going on? The lady's like, this kid just backed into my brand new, I mean, it had paper tags on it.
Oh my God.
My brand new Mustang of all cars I run into. It's a brand new Mustang. And she says, I want to call the police. My grandma was like, listen, I'll just pay for it. And at that time, I think we might have still did some auto glass. My dad's company did some auto glass at the time.
Okay.
So I think they did some work for the Ford dealership.
Okay.
And,
so it kind of worked.
Yeah. So they were like, listen, just take it up to the Ford dealership, have them fix it, and I'll pay for it. So my grandmother paid for it. I mean, we never told my dad until.
Oh wow, Grandma was good.
Grandma, she didn't. She was like, "No, I'm not gonna get you in trouble."
Yeah.
But so that's how it started. That was that. I bought that, and then.
How did it transition into the racetrack?
As soon as I used to go to.
But you live so close there.
Yeah. My uncle and my dad both. They went to MIR like when it first started. Like the first opening day, they were there.
If you don't mind, because even my ignorance, when was that? What year did MIR?
In the
round numbers.
I think it's in the 60s.
Okay, so Royce bought it in mid-90s?
I think it was like, early 90s. Okay. I think Royce got it. I mean, I remember Royce, seeing Royce at the track. He had I think it was like an 84 Camaro. Wow. It was brown and tan.
Do you remember him as a racer long
before
Royce?
I've known Royce. I've known Royce since I was, a teenager, 16 years old, since going down there, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, going to the track like my dad, and then would go down on big events and stuff, where I'd get with somebody and we'd go to the racetrack. And I remember being 8, 10 years old. The kid standing there looking through the the fence.
Yeah.
They didn't have the big stands and everything they have now.
Yeah.
But I remember just being there watching it, and the jet cars going by and just being amazed by all that stuff. So I don't want to say I don't want to say that I grew up at the track. I wasn't there every weekend as a kid or anything, but not like our kids grew up at the track.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because really none of our kids never really raced, which is,
well, you do have one. Yeah. We'll get to that.
But I think that really got me into racing, and then.
What'd your dad think of that when you decided to
start
dumping boatloads of money?
When I got the Camaro, that's all I was talking about. Yeah. As soon as I turned 16, and as soon as I get my driver's license, I'm going to the racetrack.
Yeah.
And he kept trying to talk me out of it. He's like, you don't want your daily driver to be something that you race. You're gonna be broke down all the time. You're gonna get towed back from the racetrack. And I was like, Dad, it's not gonna be like that. Yeah. It's not gonna be like that.
And speaking logic.
Oh yeah. So many times I look back and go, why didn't I listen?
Yeah.
I sometimes I think like he must be Merlin, because he can see into the future.
Yeah. Right.
But and as soon as I got it, Johnny. Me and Johnny were best friends growing up.
Sure.
And
was Johnny already into racing, or he had?
We were the same thing. We were same interests. He, Johnny was a little bit more of a spoiled kid growing up.
Okay.
So his parents, they bought him. He had basically a full on race car. He had a '69 Z28.
Wow. I did not know that.
Slammed on the ground.
Tubbed
semi-tubbed.
Oh wow.
He had a freaking race car when we were in high school.
That's awesome. I did not know that. Okay.
It had it had a built engine in it.
Was his father into it, or mother?
No, his father passed away when we were 18.
Okay.
But no, his mom wasn't. They weren't. Me and Johnny just, we grew up even on the Vance and I. It's funny because I remember to this day, he had a poster in his bedroom, which was the old Vance and Hines poster, and it was a picture of Terry Vance.
I have it out in my shop. I have it in my shop, and of all people, your best friend, really good friend of mine, Procopio, gave it to me. I don't know how he came about them all, but he gave me one.
Yeah, he got them from CPE when CPE closed up. I think Gary, when Gary passed away, he had a bunch, and I think that's
how I got them. But anyway,
because I remember when that happened. I think Johnny ended up getting one too, because that's when right before Gary died. That's when Johnny first really started coming back. He had bought an old ProStar bike or something.
Yeah, quick excerpt. CPE, Cycle Performance Engineering, out of Clinton, right?
Right.
I'm 17 years old. First place I ever went to get my motors built before Rick Smith. My guy has been my guy 30 plus years. But so that gives you a little backstory. You got Vinny Vetterman rode their Pro Stock bike.
Well,
Big John,
when
Little
it
John.
first started, Andre rode it.
Andre, yeah.
So
yeah,
Andre
okay.
Carter was, when I was growing up, he was a little bit older than I am.
Yeah.
But Andre was the mechanic there. They all started at Clinton Cycles.
Okay.
So there was
Remember Clinton?
There was Dennis Eshelman.
Dennis, yeah.
There was
God, that's a name I'm
Big John.
Yep.
There was
John Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those four were kind of that worked at the shop.
Okay.
When Big John, around the time I think that you had started, Big John he was like kind of, he was talking about selling it. Yeah. And they had run Pro Stock, and they literally, for like one race, they did have like, I don't think they had the ET record. I think they had a mile-an-hour record. So they were like the world's fastest Pro Stock for like one race.
Right.
And that was a big thing.
They were leading the pack with Kawasaki.
Yeah, Kawasaki stuff. Well, not really, because at that time, Schultz was on a Kawasaki.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So Schultz rode Kawasaki's the whole time. He had a Kawasaki most of the time through his Eagle One days.
Oh, wow. I didn't know.
Yeah, so Eagle One was, that's Billy Stewart ended up, he copied the bike. He painted a bike that black, orange, and pink.
Okay, yeah.
But, yeah, so... Yeah. That, we all got up there. We were racing with CPE and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But Johnny, I would say I remember that Vance and Hines poster. Yeah. But, there was a bunch of guys. We lived near I don't know, a lot of people around here know, but it's called Dog Patch. So on the weekends, nowadays, kids, I would never let my kids do the stuff that me and Johnny did. I mean, we were literally 12, 13 years old. And I pretty much, during the summertime, would live at Johnny's house. I would go there every weekend. We would go there because his parents were older.
Okay.
And his at that time...
Their road was a little bit longer.
Yeah, we were in the basement all the time. So they didn't know. Like, we would sneak out.
Yeah. Oh,
so we would literally... We'd be out. His brother, Ricky, we would go up to... There was a liquor store up the street. And Ricky would give us a ride up to the liquor store, which was probably about maybe 2 miles away. So we would go up to the liquor store... And not trying to get Ricky locked up now.
Yeah. Ricky's the CDL fella.
Yes. Okay. So Ricky would take us up there.
Yeah.
And he'd go into BK Miller's, and we'd have some money saved up.
Yeah.
And we'd buy, maybe a 6-pack of beer
liquor or some shit.
Yeah. Well, we'd buy I remember we used to drink Michelob, and why? I mean, I hated beer. Periods. I've never liked beer.
Yeah. Me
but we would drink beer.
Yeah.
And we would get like a shot. I mean, like a fifth of. I remember we tried like Goldschlager.
Yeah, and everything is going to get you there quicker.
Yeah. And then we would literally walk back.
I'm not a drinker, but I've heard.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, so he would drop us off there, and we would walk back. Well, then we would always see the older kids, the guys that were 17, 18, they were driving around. There's people, guys, a couple a little older than us. Marty Cotney had like a really... I mean, he had a fast for back in the day, probably like a 10-second, 11, low 11, 10-second car.
So everybody was thinking cars back then.
Yeah, so the people that we looked up to and kind of were like tagging along.
Yeah.
They all had cars like that, and so we kind of we would catch rides, go down to Dog Patch. I mean, we're down there with,
Forgive me for my ignorance. Mm-hmm. Dog Patch, was that like a make-out, hangout site?
No, Dog Patch is an area which is actually off of 381 down through Brandywine.
Okay.
So when you go down through there, there's an old school it was an old elementary school, I believe. It was called Orm School.
Okay.
And like even back when we were just, I think we were in maybe 10th grade. We just came into high school. It might have been 9th grade, but a bunch of the high school, there was a guy named Pat Washington who was at Saratsville High School. He was our janitor.
Okay.
And Pat was big into drag racing.
Guy.
He was big into drag racing. So he hung around with all the guys that had all these cars. So like Marty, there's a bunch of guys. I can't remember everybody's name.
Back in that day.
Back in that day.
Everybody
they literally for like one day, they went down. Like, I don't know how it got to the police. Well, the police knew that everybody would go down there on Friday and Saturday night, and they would street race on this road now. And you think about a 10-second car going down through there, and there was faster cars than that at the time.
Yeah.
That would go down this 2-lane road.
Narrow ass road.
Well, it's 2-lane road.
Yeah.
Well, they went down there one day, and since they were gonna have a bunch of races, well, they blocked the road off.
Oh wow! So before Street Outlaws.
Yes, they
We're
blocked.
going back in
They
the
blocked
early
the road.
90s.
This is in the 80s. This is probably around 84, 85.
God, damn. Okay.
They blocked the road off. Well, the police found out that everybody was going down there to do this.
Okay.
So the police went and hid in the woods and wrote down all the tag numbers.
Oh, wow.
I think took pictures and everything. And everybody at school that was there got busted.
Damn.
So I think Pat lost his job over it.
Wow.
It was a big thing back then.
Yeah.
And like I said, before Street Outlaws and everything, all the street racing.
Yeah.
And that's
that
kind of how we.
Did everybody get busted and decide, hey, we need to take this shit to NYR?
No, hell no. They were still street racing. Then we were street racing over on Indian Head Highway, B Street
back then.
Out on 50.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's like Ronnie Reese. I've known Ronnie Reese. I mean, me and Ronnie have known each other since I turned 16. I went and bought a motorcycle.
So not to sidebar your story, we'll come back to that, but Boo and I listened to Ben Knight's podcast along with Dustin Lee, the Red Hill Racing. They had Boo on there, and Boo spoke of his encounter the first time he met Ronnie Reese, and Ronnie Reese was very combative and tried to do the right thing, not sell the bike, and yada yada. How was Ronnie when you went in there to buy a bike?
He worked at a Yamaha dealership up on Suitland Park, not Suitland, Suitland Road.
Okay.
Silver Hill Road and Suitland Road, right at the corner there.
Yeah.
And I would stop in there. It was right after I turned 16. I would stop in there all the time, looking at the motorcycles. And this was before you had what you want to call back then rice rockets. Everybody was
VMAX.
The VMAX.
Yeah.
So the VMAX was the first motorcycle that I remember literally them pushing it towards drag racing on commercials on television.
Yes.
So they would show them doing a burnout. They would talk about it's a 10-second motorcycle. So
ZX7 was flirting with it back then. The Kawasaki ZX7.
At that time,
there was
don't even know there was a Z. There was
my father.
The 600. There was a 600. Ninja came out with the 600R.
Yeah. Yep.
You had the Ninja 1000.
Okay.
I don't even think they had. They might have had I think they had a Ninja 750. I think that's what they had.
Okay. Yeah.
But so we would go there. There was Clinton Cycle. There were so many motorcycle dealerships at the time in our area. You had Clinton Cycle. You had where Ronnie was like, I can't remember the name. I think it wasn't Heiser Cycle, but you had that. You had
Atlantic Cycle wasn't around.
Atlantic Cycle wasn't around back then.
Okay. Cycle World's been around.
Yeah,
forever.
Cycle World. Yeah. You had the one that's up on
Pete Cycle.
Pete Cycle. Yeah. Cycles USA.
Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
That was one of my first sponsors. Was Cycle USA.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
Trying to think who else. You had the one that was down at Fort Washington. Damn, I can't remember the name of
there, bud.
But needless to say, so I would go around. Every time I was out on the road working, I would stop. If I saw a motorcycle dealership, I'd stop in there and just walk around. And basically walk around, just going, man, sit on the motorcycles and God, I'm gonna buy one of these things. And my dad was always like, you're not getting a motorcycle. Because my dad almost got killed on a motorcycle when he was 16.
I didn't know
He literally got somebody cut in front of him. It was raining. He went down. And his story to me was that he literally was sliding on the road. And as he was spinning around, turning, a car went by and just missed him, almost ran him over.
Was he a Harley guy back then? Probably in that time? More of a cruiser
I don't
type?
know what, but like whatever they had, like Fonzie's. I don't know what the hell the motorcycles were.
It's fine.
So, he was always against me getting motorcycles.
He was never about the speed like you.
Yeah, no. Okay. So then, we I go up to Ronnie's the dealership Ronnie was working, and Ronnie was only, he's about I think Ronnie might be a year older than me or so. So he was in there, and there was a guy that worked there that knew my dad. Okay. So when I stopped in there, I had seen this guy before. Around my dad at the time. So I he walks over to me. He's like, hey, Hunnicutt, what are you doing in here? And I'm like, I'm just looking at a bike. Started talking to Ronnie, and I was looking at the VMAX, but I couldn't afford a VMAX at that time. And then plus, I was 16 years old. That bike was a monster to sit on.
Yeah.
And at that time, they came out, which was called the Phaser, which was like the VMAX.
It's like an FJ.
It was
a Phaser.
It was a Yamaha Phaser. It was a 750.
Okay.
But it looked like the VMAX, but it was smaller.
didn't know that.
So it had these chrome pieces, like the VMAX has a piece that comes up, looks like
an intake.
Like an intake. Well, it had these chrome intakes that came up and went down. I don't think it wasn't fuel injected, but it was like at that time, it was like, oh, this is going to be the next thing, and it was right before all the big blow up for all the ninjas and stuff came out. So I went in there, I was looking at that, and it was in the price range. I think I paid like maybe $4,000 for it or something. But I was in there talking to Ronnie, and Ronnie ended up selling me my first motorcycle.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. I remember I was riding it home from the dealership, and it started raining. I mean, I'm thinking the whole time, I'm never going to ride this in the rain. This thing's going to be spotless. And I get home, and it's filthy.
You're soaked, yeah.
And but yeah, that's how me and Ronnie Reese. And I raced that for a short time. As soon as I got it, well, at the time, me and Johnny were going to buy the same motorcycle.
Yeah.
So Johnny's like, and we were always competitive. So he was like, I went up and had to buy mine before he bought his.
Of course.
Well,
that's
he taught me a lesson. He went and did the end around and bought a GS 1150.
I can't hail him now.
1985 GS 1150, red and black.
Awesome.
He gets this thing and blowing the doors off. We're getting out of it, and I'm like that thing, you ain't gonna outrun me. This 750 is supposed to be so fast. Got out there, and he would just walk
away.
And he, then I was like, oh, I gotta get rid of this thing. So I ended up going out and I bought a Ninja 1000R.
Okay.
And then he had to go buy a ZX10 when it came out. So we always were back and forth buying it. Yeah. But yeah, we raced those. We started racing those. I raced my Camaro for a couple years. Maybe I think I had it till my senior year, and then as I was, getting a little older, my dad kept telling me, "Oh, you need to get something that's more reliable. You're getting ready to graduate."
Yeah. And, speaking logic.
Yeah. Well, and you got to think, I had a car that had no air conditioning.
Yeah.
It was hot as hell driving around in this thing that was,
still badass.
Yeah.
$1,000.
Right. $1,000.
$1,000.
I spent every dime I had in it, always doing something.
Yeah.
I lived at Speed Unlimited.
Yeah.
I literally, same thing there. Every time I went by Speed Unlimited, I was in there.
Yeah.
I mean, George, and I think at one time, they came by and put a price tag on me. I was in there so long.
No shit.
And,
so let's just to jump ahead, fast forward. You and Ronnie Procopio starting, because this is my memory, and I'm younger than you guys, not by much, but my memory of coming to Maryland International Raceway, because I was a Capital Raceway guy with Jimmy Miller Sr., the best there ever was. I don't care what anybody says. That's my humble opinion. I decided in my mind to come down and race what I thought at its time was the best. So this was...
I'll have to argue with that the best it ever was, though.
Well,
at that time. I'm saying at that time.
Yeah, I understand. You have Tony Toll.
Yeah, I was going to say Tony Toll.
No, Tony Toll. I'm just saying.
And he bought Tony's bike, so that's what, to me, I was like,
and
he just took Tony's bike, and it was like, started thinking, was the bike that good, or was it Tony?
Well, in all fairness, I bought Tony's small tire bike. Right. So Jimmy got his big tire, I got a small tire bike. So I'm just saying, in my little square of my world at 18 years old, not to make this podcast or YouTube about me, was I started in 1996. So I started at Capital Raceway. And
we raced up there, too. We raced up there. I think Capital, we went pretty much almost every Friday. Like on Friday nights, we'd go to Capital. Saturday, we'd go to the Creek. Sunday
was Mason-Dixon.
Yeah. Or we would go. We did go to Mason-Dixon, or we even went to 75 and 80.
Okay.
And we would go to Colonial Beach sometimes.
Okay.
So I mean, it was. Yeah. And back then.
Yeah.
We raced 3 days a week. Everywhere.
Absolutely.
There was no vacations. Too. I mean,
absolutely.
I was talking to.
I did too. None of us had wives or kids. So.
No. Well, I did.
You're a dog.
I got married. Yeah, I got married young, and when I did. I mean, that was the end of my marriage, it really was. She was like, look, you're not drag racing anymore. And I'm like, what? And she goes, oh, yeah, you're done. Yeah. Well, I used to work on people's motorcycles and stuff at my house. That's kind of how I was funding. I had two kids at the time. And you know, like you said, you're saying 96. So
96 is when I started.
Lauren was born in 95, so I had 2 kids by then, and was literally working on, you know, everybody's bikes. Built, you know, back then everybody had GS6R 1100, so I was doing motors for them. And she just one day, I'll never forget, I was on the phone with Pete Gregory, rest in peace.
Okay.
But Pete I was talking to him about what he wanted done on his bike, and I got off the phone, and she's like, "What were you talking about?" I'm like, "Oh, we're getting ready. We're talking about getting ready to go, you know, for the first race of the year, which was in Gainesville every year." And
we all know ProStar days.
So ProStar, right? And we were like, "I'm getting ready for that." And she was like, "Oh, you're not racing anymore." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, racing's done. We got 2 kids now, and house. I mean, your racing's over with." I'm like, "I've been racing. I raced, right." It reminds me of that meme. Always says, "The fuck you are." I literally was like, "You've lost your fucking mind. I raced when before I met you, and I'm gonna race when you're gone." And she was like, "Your racing's done, or we're done." And I'm like,
"We'll be seeing you.
Better get a lawyer." And literally,
case in point, right here, right.
Yep, here I am.
I'm not gonna throw how many wives later, but sorry.
But needless to say, so I ended up.
Get back to where's the link up with Procopio? He's a local guy.
Ronnie.
I never knew this
when me and
backstory.
Ronnie were in high school.
Okay. Yeah.
Now Ronnie's a year older than me. He might have been 2 grades younger than me in school because I don't even think he graduated.
Oh shit! Okay.
Dumbass motherfucker.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought he was smart.
No,
no, I'm kidding.
But no, Ronnie was from Camp Springs, which most people, if you know, Camp Springs is about Camp Springs and Clinton are 2 towns that kind of rivaled each other.
Yep.
And Ronnie was one of the guys from the Camp Springs crew. We were from Clinton.
Yeah.
And you know, the groups, whether it was football or just hanging out at the local McDonald's,
clubs or whatever,
like Clinton McDonald's was at the time was like a big hangout. So, and then you know parties. Back, I don't think they even kids nowadays. I don't know there was a party almost every weekend when we were in high school at somebody's house.
Yeah, for
sure. Or in the woods. I mean, we had places that we would go party at and stuff. Well, I used to see Ronnie and them, and my at the time my brother-in-law I ended up marrying Bubba Ennis, he was part of that Camp Springs crew too.
Yeah.
And
so he was the gateway to.
Well, no. Me and Ronnie at the time. Ronnie. I don't know if Ronnie knew who I was. I knew who Ronnie was because I was at a party one time, and a bunch of people had gotten into a fight. Sure. And I remember Ronnie had gotten into a fight with this guy that I thought at the time was one of his friends.
Gotcha.
Well, that to me, and I knew they were. At least I thought they were friends. And to me, I was like, damn, I want to kill this little motherfucker.
Yeah.
And I used to sit there and I'd be like, man, I want to beat. Every time I'd see him, I would want to strangle him.
Yeah. Okay.
And
he obviously knows this.
Yeah, he knows this now. Yeah, this is new now. I used to want to strangle him.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of people think that way now, only because you win a lot, not because they don't like you.
But
sorry, go.
Then we were at, I mean, racing really does bring people together. So we were down at Budds Creek.
Yeah.
And we were racing, and Ronnie shows up with a bike. I'm trying to think what bike. I think he had a GS6R.
I remember a purple and orange.
Well, before it was that color.
Okay, was that same bike? I remember.
I believe that was the same
Small
bike.
tire.
I believe that was what it was. A GS6R 750, like a 91, I think.
Yep. Danny Walsh, all them guys were running.
Yeah,
back
well,
then, right?
Danny wasn't even around then.
Oh shit.
Okay,
yeah,
so this is probably 90, right at 91. I think he bought one.
Okay.
My brother had a 91 750, blue and white one. They had the exact same bike, just different colors.
Yeah.
And so we're all racing, and Ronnie comes down there. I don't know and some people that will remember, Ronnie used to have this old Chevy pickup truck that he it wasn't old then. I guess it was probably like a later 80s. Okay. And this was in the 90s, and it was his work truck.
Okay.
And he would have fucking bricks and shovels
Everything
in it. His bike would be right up in it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And he pulls up, and I'll never forget, this motherfucker came down. We're all racing in like jeans, and this motherfucker shows up with road race boots on. And we clowned this motherfucker so bad. We're like, look at this motherfucker's down here with road racing boots on.
Yeah. You going to turn 4, Ron? I mean, what are we doing?
So we knew because we were our group of guys were all from Clinton.
Okay, yeah.
So, but we knew who Ronnie. Some people knew Ronnie a little bit better or whatever at the time. So Ronnie's kind of racing, and it kind of just turned into, hey, y'all going to be here next weekend?
Yeah,
I'll see you down here next week. We didn't hang out at the time. It was like, yeah. So then, he would come down, we would come, and then it just turned into, we all started hanging out together.
Sure.
And, it was like, well, hey, Friday we're going to be at Capitol. We'd be at Capitol racing. Then we're going to go to, even our numbers were
so close together.
Up at Capitol, they used to give numbers out. If you remember, when you got there on a Friday night, you'd have to go through. You go through the tech line. So tech used to be on the back side.
I remember.
You'd come up the hill,
Tiny
go around
shed.
in a circle, and like in a line.
Yeah.
You'd come around, go up. They do all your stuff. Well, they would give you numbers, and it started at 500. I don't know why they did that, but 500 for the motorcycles was like the first number.
Okay.
So we would always end up being up there like early.
Okay.
So we'd always end up being like the first ones in line or whatever.
Yeah.
So I forget who. I think Tommy Rivora had 500.
Okay.
I think my brother had like 501. I ended up with 505. I think Ronnie had 504. For the longest time, that was Ronnie's number, 504.
Yeah.
He's always been somebody that like
this is a path I didn't think we'd go down, but go ahead.
He kind of always. Ronnie's always kept his stuff, the same. He doesn't change a lot.
We
stuff.
all do. Yeah.
And well, not me. I mean, I change. Fucking seems like everything every year forever. I was always getting a new bike.
I've forever known, but I'll let you finish this. 1169. Right. I know your number.
Right.
Just like I know his number.
Right.
And my 1121 came from ProStar.
Right.
Number 12, not trying to be Al Bundy.
Right.
I was a quarterback in high school football.
Same thing, yeah.
So, that's where my number came from. Then I had to put a 1 on it. Then somebody had 121. Then it's like, okay, 1121, and it's stuck.
Well, that's what happened with us, how we ended up with our numbers, like 1169. Ronnie's was, I think, 1143 or something after that. And what happened was when we went to ProStar, we got there, we all had these 505s. We had stickers made up and everything. So now we started going up Capitol, and those were our numbers. We were like, hey, we're 5, so they would we'd get in there, our numbers already 500s.
Yeah.
So we all had stickers on our bikes. Well, then you get to ProStar. Oh, that number ain't no good. You can't have a 3-digit number.
Yeah.
You got to pick a number. So I ended up picking 1169 because my birthday was 5/11/69.
Okay. Makes
so
sense.
when they used to have a book when you would go to ProStar, they had a book with all the numbers. Okay. So if you ran like a sportsman class, they would open up the sportsman. It would start with like number 1000 was like the first number.
Yeah.
So then you go through and they'd, all right, what number do you want? So you could look through the book real quick. Give me 1169. Well, they put your name down there. That was now your number for the season.
Yeah.
And so we all ended up. That's how we ended up with all these numbers that we had. Mine's changed a couple different times.
I've always remembered 1169, but to get back to now here's where I need to hear the deeper rooted and not to leak it out. I have an idea of why I don't know if it was you or Ronnie, but I know it was the two of you, decided to call your race team Legion of Doom.
Okay. That started because
everyone's dying to know. Maybe they know, I don't.
Going to ProStars in the early 90s, there was, everybody wanted to, when you go racing, you want to be,
set yourself
especially
apart.
when you're younger,
100%.
You're craving the attention that when you show up, you notice that the other guys are getting.
Absolutely.
Well, we started going to ProStars. Now, Ronnie and them didn't go to the ProStars like I did at first. So when I first went to a ProStar, I was hooked. I was like, in my mind, I was like, these are the best people in the world.
Yeah.
Even though we raced at Budds Creek, and I felt like the bracket racers growing up at Budds Creek, Tony Talls, Ronnie, I mean, all the people there.
Tony Dotson.
Yeah, and then going up, you went up, you go up to Capitol, Steve Hefner.
Jimmy Miller.
Well, even the older guys,
Mike Mace.
All these guys that we grew up with. Boo.
Yeah.
All these guys we always thought were the best, but I was like, this is on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
These are guys I always thought of them these are the guys that came from the other areas.
Right.
That, only the good guys are coming to these races because they're not spending the money. Like Ronnie would stay home
and race local. You know, he would race and you know, I mean, hence why not that he wasn't good, but he won all these championships because he never fucking left.
Yeah.
You know, I went to every ProStar race for probably 10 years. I went to, I mean, I traveled all the time with him. And I was only because when I went, my whole intention was I'm getting to Pro Stock.
Yeah.
When I went and saw Pro Stock and Pro Mod, I was like, I'm running these classes. Yeah. Eventually, I don't know how I'm going to afford it, but at one day I'm going to race this shit.
Yeah.
You know, like even, you know, Billy Vose. So growing up, we literally went to Maple Grove to basically, now it's grudge race, and we went to race Billy Vose with one of our bikes Tommy Rivora had, which was a GSXR. So we went all the way up to Maple Grove to race Billy. And Billy was...
No bar class?
These were wheelie bar bikes.
Wheelie bars. Okay.
So there was a GSXR. It was a 91 GSXR 1100 that CPE had done. Tommy had... Yeah. When Tommy bought this thing brand new, he took it straight to CPE. Had to put a piston kit in it, swing arm, you know, wide, had a tire cut, or rim widened, and wheelie bars put on and everything. And he was out there going like 890s, like in 91. I mean, which was... His shit was flying.
Yeah, yeah.
And we heard about this guy from up Pennsylvania area, up there, did all the street racing, right? And the thing was, there was the guy wears a white leather suit. You know, we were like, the fuck,
looking like a moon man.
Yeah, this guy's wearing a white leather suit, and we show up. I mean, I don't know how much older Billy is than me, but I think Billy's probably,
10 years maybe.
I don't know if he's that much older than me.
Yeah,
but either way,
I can't speak on it. Yeah.
He literally, when we went there, he just had this, like, he walked around. And people, I mean, dude, if they could have sucked his dick, they would have. I mean, it was, I couldn't believe it. I was like,
I think that line, just for the viewers, has gotten a lot shorter. Sorry.
I was just like, I cannot fucking believe these people ride this. Because to me, you know, how could you dick ride this motherfucker so bad? You know, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? That they literally were like, Billy, you know, and at the time, you didn't know that he was and he wasn't who he is and who he became through the 90s and 2000s.
Of course not.
I mean, I still say, you know, I know you and Billy don't have a...
No, hey, Billy's the best there ever was. But if you're wondering that, just ask him, he'll tell you. Sorry, go
But
ahead.
literally, Billy, you know, me and Billy had our little bit, like when I started running Pro Mod and things like that, me and Billy kind of had clashed heads and stuff. And I went to Billy and I literally said to him, I said, look, man, I honestly, I believe that he changed after our conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
Because this was even before social media. This was basically like with just chat rooms, like Psycho Bike,
1998.
Yeah, it's like Psycho Bike and some of these other.
That might have been 05 when we ran Outlaw.
But even before that, because this was back when I was messing when I first. No, I guess it was whatever when I had
99 to 05.
Yeah, so I had the Pro Mod and I literally went to him and you know we were kind of having words and stuff and I told him, I said, man, you literally are John Force. This was even before John Force is now, but I was like, you're John Force of motorcycle drag racing.
I would agree with that.
But yet, when people come into drag racing and guys are coming up, you're not really taking yourself and being a mentor.
Right.
You're being a dick.
Yeah.
And I told him, and I was like, you're fucking literally bullying on people. And I said, man, you don't need to tell anybody how good you are. Right. Trust me. And I said, as hard as it is for me to say this, you're the best.
I couldn't agree more.
I was like, you need to act like it, though.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, we kind of, you know, went back and forth. And then finally one day we just kind of, you know, he started doing some stuff for me. And, I mean, I've stayed at Billy's house.
Did you have your clothes on? Sorry. I can't help because when we're triggered, we have to do this. Go ahead.
But yes. But yeah, so...
you were his Vose.
But
you and a stick of butter.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But back then, you know, like I said, Billy... And I do think at that time, you know, like even when ADRO and all that stuff...
started blowing up. Was that 07, fair enough to say? 07 ADRO really started?
Yeah, 06 I think is the first year that we did... We went to...
You had a Pro Mod bike before me, didn't you?
Yeah, remember I got my pro mod. Remember
I'll never
won
forget it. I was with you.
I literally, which most people won't believe this, but I literally
True story.
called Mac. It was a Thursday night. I said, I'm going to this poker tournament tomorrow. If I win this poker tournament, I'm going to buy this fucking pro mod from Scott Stillo, which I don't know if most people know. Scott Stillo was like, before anybody else was buying motorcycles and parting them out, he was
the broker.
Yeah, that's what he was called, the broker.
Yeah.
And he posted a bike.
What was that fella's name? It was black with silver fucking flames on it. We took the ride up.
Yeah.
It wasn't James Rester, which Rester's a bad dude.
It was Scott Stillo. I mean, it was Scott McKinney's bike originally.
Yeah, but the fella that had
the guy that rode it, I cannot remember.
I know,
that raced it, I can't remember his name.
I remember when you acquired it because he won the Texas Hold'em.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Called him Saturday morning and said, we're riding to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And he's like, no way. I said, I won the tournament, $10,000. We're driving up there.
Yeah.
So we drive up there, and I bought that. I can't remember what year that was, but that, like I said, that bike had so much.
If I had to guess, 08, 09. You weren't out of Outlaw yet, or maybe you were out Outlaw?
No, because I had both. I had the Pro Mod and Outlaw.
It might have been 06, 07.
Yeah.
05, 06. Yeah. Forgive our memories, but it gives you a clear picture, because I remember when you got
Matter of fact, I think it was 04.
Damn, was it that?
Yeah, because I ran.
When did that song Bring 'Em Out come out?
Yeah, T.I.
Because I remember riding up for whatever reason. We were laughing and joking and talking about it.
Yeah.
And there's so many more jokes. Scott Stillo, you know what I think of you.
Oh,
and I'm going to leave it at that. But we had tons of jokes with that song and you. So anyway, sorry, Rob.
Thanks. But yeah,
you told him.
We literally with Billy
buy the bike
at that time.
Was Billy the tuner at the time when you bought the bike, or you decided to go with him?
Yeah, no. Billy, when I bought the Pro Mod and got it, that's when me and Billy kind of were beefing because I guess I was the new person.
Sure.
That's when I became real good friends with Chappelle Hurd. Rest in peace for him.
I agree. Awesome man.
Yeah, so what? Back to the thing, we went to Maple Grove to race Billy with the bike, and of course Billy fucked us up. Took us for at that time I think he took us for like $1,000, which was fucking.
It's like $5,000 now.
Yeah, it was like fucking
brutal. Yeah,
beat the wheels off of us. And, and that's kind of how we kind of got to knowing Billy. And then like to say the ProStar days and stuff.
Get back to the route, and then we'll move on. Not the route.
Okay, okay. So
like the Legion of Doom. Not that route, y'all. This guy. I know. This guy.
So literally, we were at ProStar, and at the time, there was a group that we noticed, or at least I noticed, that every time, and they weren't running pro classes, they were running sportsman classes. So you would always hear... You'd hear the pro guys, Billy Vose, Scott Valetti,
Bob Fry, the stat guy back then.
Yeah. Was Lewis Bloom. Yeah, Lewis Bloom was, and we grew up with Lewis because Lewis was an announcer at Budds Creek a lot of times.
Yeah, like Brett Kepner.
Yeah, Brett Kepner. Yeah. But I noticed that this group was, and they were from New Jersey, and they would always get a lot of, when they were at Team Squid, and I can't remember. I want to say, I don't know for a fact. I know it was Ron. Holt? No, not Ron Holt. Ron Reagan. Ron Reagan was one of them. I believe Mike Thean might have been in Team Squid. Who else? And I may be getting it wrong that they were in it, but
okay. But they're up.
We all grew. I mean, we all raced together. Mike Thean was another one that was a great,
really good
sports racer.
Still kills it. Yeah.
But I started hearing all that, so I was like, look, man, we got to come up with something. Now that we all started going to the races, to the ProStars. So like, we all went to ATCO every year. It was Gainesville and ATCO that they all went to. They didn't go to the other races. I would go to them by myself, but they would come to ATCO and Gainesville.
Okay.
So we're going to ATCO, and I'm like, listen, we got to come up with a team name. So they're like, a team name, it kind of sound kind of stupid.
Who are you speaking to at the early?
I'm talking to Ronnie and Mark Person.
Yep.
So Mark lived at the end of the street from Ronnie, so Mark kind of got into drag. I think Mark had a street bike or something at one time, but he ended up buying Bubba Ennis's bike and turned it into, he had a bike called Menace to Society.
Menace to Society. Yeah.
Well, we're all sitting there talking, and I'm like trying to come up with names, and I was always growing up a kid that liked wrestling.
Okay.
I was a Ric Flair, the Four Horsemen, all this, but I couldn't say the Four Horsemen because there was only 3 of us.
Yeah, you can't.
So I was like, that
would limit your whole team forever.
Yeah, right. So I was like, the Legion of Doom. I said, man, the best tag team is the Legion of Doom, and they have 3 guys. One of them was just basically like a manager, Paul Heyman.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's just be the Legion of Doom. Well, they were like, Legion of Doom. What's that mean? Well, Ronnie was like anti-skull or skulls. So I was like, man, it'd be badass skulls. And I'm like,
with Punisher and all that.
I'm like, this mom. So what do you want to be? Fucking flowers and shit. Fucking, Team Fag.
Yeah, Sonny and Cher.
Yeah, but
you should have been Sonny and Cher.
We did it. So I told everybody, I said, look, when we go up, when you fill out your tech cards, just put across the top. Legion of Doom.
Yeah.
Legion of Doom Racing. Things like that. So we started doing it. Well, Lewis Bloom was the announcer at the time.
Okay.
Rob Hunnicutt out of Waldorf, Maryland. Legion of Doom Racing.
Yeah.
Ronnie Procopio, Camp Springs, Maryland. Legion of Doom Racing. And it just started building. Okay. So then when, at the time, Johnny, my brother, Billy Tutt, Tommy Rivera, they all
Jerry Ferguson in the scene back then?
Jerry was just kind of starting to get into the racing stuff. He had a street bike. A lot of the guys had street bikes, and they really weren't racing. They would come down and mess around.
Sure.
So Johnny and all them, that's when the song when House of Pain was out, Jump Around. So they created House of Pain Racing.
Oh.
So Johnny had on his trail a real big painted House of Pain Racing.
Okay.
So they had that for a while. And, it kind of just stuck. It was me, Mark, and Ronnie for years. Then Mark kind of got out. And at the time...
Just to be clear for the viewers and listeners, Mark was a police officer.
Yep.
So he had to rid himself and take a deep shower to get rid of his degenerate friends known as Ronnie and Robbie. Total sidebar, just my spoof. Sorry, go ahead.
Well,
Mark. Sorry.
Mark was just as cruddy as we were.
I know.
Listen, there's a story.
I know. We won't say all that.
Listen, there's a story. I'll never forget. We used to literally go to Ronnie's house and play Madden when Madden first came out. We would all, at the end of the day, everybody would meet over Ronnie's house, and we were sitting there playing Madden.
Yeah.
Well, my son, some know, some don't, Curtis.
Yeah, Curtis.
Curtis was, at the time, he was probably 2 or 3, maybe. He was young.
Yeah.
But he went everywhere with me. So he had the big gold Run DMC chains, and I used to have
Billy Stewart with your herringbone. You still rocking it.
But he literally would he was like a little toy. So he would stand on the desk. Girls would come over Ronnie's, and I'd be like, Curtis, show them girls show them what the girls like. And Curtis would go.
Oh my!
At his young age, I mean, he would just do that. He would go.
Nothing's changed.
No, it has.
No, it has. I mean, but he
would do that.
He's still charismatic, is what I'm saying, Curtis. Not like that.
Yeah. But he would do stuff like that. Well, we were sitting there, and that was his Uncle Mark, who was a police officer. So for him, Uncle Mark's a policeman. That's the baddest thing in the world. Well, we're sitting there, and Mark would set his radio on the table, and he's sitting there, and all of a sudden it come across, and it said, such and such. There's a person with a shotgun. He's in the parking lot, shooting it, this and that. Well, Curtis pops up, and he's like, Uncle Mark, that guy's got a gun. You got to go. Yeah. And Uncle Mark remembers this. He reached up and took the volume and went, whoop, turned it down. And so he's sitting there, and Curtis is just waiting for Uncle Mark to
cops ever do.
He's just waiting for Uncle Mark to jump up and run out of the house, lights are blaring and everything, right? And he's sitting there, and Curtis is just like, Uncle Mark, you got to go. There's a bad guy with a gun.
Yeah.
And he looked at him and he said, Curtis, did you hear what that radio said? And he was like, yeah. And he goes, he had a shotgun. He goes, yeah. And he goes, see what I got?
Yeah.
Uncle Mark's staying right here. And Curtis was
Mark.
Curtis was like so dejected.
Yeah.
Even as like a 3 or 4 year old, he was just like scratching his head like he can't understand why Uncle Mark didn't like put on a Superman suit and fly out the door. He just
well, you're his father at the time.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. Where did you pick up the Superman? Where did you pick up the slogan? I've always known you as that, but someone had to start calling you, whether you called it yourself or what.
Well, it started. Okay, it started. I was working at Herb Gordon Dodge.
Okay.
And this is in 2000, I guess about 2000.
Early 2000.
Early 99, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And I always had a thing with, like Superman growing up, you know.
What boy wouldn't?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I had, every time I'd go somewhere, if I saw a Superman sticker, I'd buy it, put it on my bike or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I was working there as a tech, and the guy, my boss, he was probably 27, 28 years old. I'm like 19 or 20 years old. Whatever it was. I can't remember how. And maybe it was earlier. It had to be in the early 90s then or something. Whatever it was.
Yeah.
So he has a son.
Okay.
Well, his son comes in, and me and Ronnie had went and got, when me and Ronnie got, started hanging out all the time, we both went and got tattoos. Well, I wasn't getting a tattoo. At the time, I was never getting tattoos.
Yeah.
Ronnie was like, man, I'll pay for your tattoo. If you get a tattoo, I'll pay for it.
Okay.
And I'm like, fuck, you going to pay for my tattoo? And he's like, man, I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
So we go, get to the tattoo. We don't know what the fuck we're getting.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of thinking, I'm like, man, I'm going to get a Superman tattoo.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I kind of come up with this, I'm getting a Superman tattoo, and at the time, tribal was like a big thing.
Yeah. Well,
so I got this tattoo in tribal. So Ronnie was like, man, I kind of like that, but I'm not fucking putting Superman on my arm. So he ended up, I think he put his initials.
Okay.
I think he put a P with whatever his initials.
Yeah.
And so the guy that I work with, his son comes in, and he's like 3 or 4 years old. He's a little kid, and so he comes in, and I've always been good with kids playing with himself. So he comes in, he's like, "Hey Rob, can you watch him for a second? I gotta run in and turn this ticket." And I'm like, "All right." So the kid's sitting there, and he's just, and I said, "Hey, you want to know a secret?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "You can't tell anybody." I said, "You can't tell your dad, you can't tell your mom, you can't tell anyone." Nowadays, I'd been locked up for
telling. You're not giving them Jesus juice in a Pepsi bottle. Fucking Robbie Jackson.
So
sorry.
So
Michael's cousin.
I'm telling him, I'm like, you cannot, you can't tell anybody. You gotta promise me you're not gonna tell. Because if I'm gonna tell you something, you honestly cannot tell. Because if I tell you this, everybody's gonna want to know.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Okay, I won't tell nobody."
Yeah.
And I lift my arm up and I say,
"You said I'm Superman."
I'm Superman.
Yeah.
And this kid's eyes got so big.
Wow.
He was like, "Can you fly?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Can I see?" And I said, "I can't do it because everybody's around right now." I said, "I can't tell him." So the next day, my boss comes in. He walks in. He goes, "What the fuck did you say to my son?" And I'm like, "Nothing. Why?" And he goes, "Because we were riding home, and I'm just asking him, how do you like coming to work? Because it was like bring your kid to work day or something."
Yeah.
And he goes, he's like, "Oh, I like," and he's like, I like that guy Rob." And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yep. I can't tell you." And he was like, "You can't tell me what?" He goes, "He told me something I can't tell you." And he's like, "You're supposed to tell me
everything."
Right. So he's telling his son. His son will not tell him. He
Good
won't
for
tell
him.
his wife.
Good character.
His mom. Not.
Yes.
So the next day he comes in. He's like, "What did you tell my son?" I was like, "He didn't tell you." And he goes, "No." I'm like, "Well, I can't tell you."
Yeah, I can't tell you either.
And he's like, so for the longest time, he is asking me, "You got to tell me what you told my son." I said, "I can't tell you." So finally, I'm like, "All right, you want to know what I told him?" He goes, "What?" I went, he said, "If you told my fucking son that you're Superman," and I said, "Yep," and he goes, "That little son of a bitch won't even tell me."
Good for him.
And I'm like, he's not supposed to.
That's loyalty.
And so he brought his son in one day. The wife brought him up here for lunch one day, and he came over and he was like, "I haven't told anybody. When can I see you fly?" And it just went on from there. So then everybody in the shop started calling me Superman, and so that's kind of how it got started. And then when we were racing, I'd always have like a Superman sticker on my
Okay.
bike.
Okay, here's where I'm gonna hijack it.
Oh,
Now,
Lord, here we
I'm
go.
gonna go back to circa 2005. Rob and I were teammates, traveling to every ProStar race. It might have been 03 to 05. We did Top Gas. I never ran Pro Mod back in those days, but I think Robbie and I, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we ran Top Gas and Pro ET.
Well, that's how we got, because we knew who you were.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, these click type things.
Yeah.
You were from Capitol.
Yeah.
Once in a while, you'd come down to Budds Creek and race.
But
most of the time,
down.
you'd stay up Capitol.
Yeah.
And we like us, we were like, well, we don't like them Capitol guys,
Right?
But
Sure.
we were friends with so many Capitol guys, like Ronnie Reese,
Yeah.
Boo. We used to race up there. That's
Yeah.
how we got in with Boo.
Yeah.
Kevin Gardner,
yeah,
rest
Kevin,
in peace.
Yes, I agree.
You all those guys, they all raced up there, and we, Chuck K, all those guys there.
The list
we
is
were,
endless.
we were
Tony
so
Dotson, Tony Toll, because Tony Toll was more of a Capital guy than MIR in my mind, my perception, but I could be wrong.
No, he was an MIR guy. He would go up there and race because it was closer to him.
Yeah,
but
okay.
he came to Budds Creek every Saturday.
Yeah,
he would go there Fridays.
Yeah,
and then most time, but he was always at Budds Creek. Yeah. And
we all used CPE, but it was kind of like those guys.
Yeah, those guys.
You'd pass out, or
So when we saw you,
when
we all knew you had bought. I'll never forget the story, because I remember you had bought Tony Tall's bike, and I don't remember, was it at Budds Creek that the motor popped, or was it at
both
and
times.
I remember that.
Both times.
So the story. Now, if you know Mac and how he gets heated, just a little bit.
Yeah, I've changed.
Mac buys Tony Tall's bike. I believe comes right there. They unload it.
Yeah.
He does a burnout, and it
grenades.
Windows
kicks
the motor.
a rod. Yeah. Now, mind you, what Robbie probably doesn't know, I was 18 years old. I got a personal loan with a co-signer of my father for $7,800 to buy Tony Toll's last prized possession. The deal I had with Tony was I had 3 races. And Tony, you can validate this because you and I still talk. And you're one of Robbie's sponsors, and I'm sure he thanks you, and I thank you for supporting the sport. But you gave me 3 races to give the body back, and then the first pass it kicked a rod. Go ahead.
Right. So we're all there, and Mac gets off the bike, lays it over, I believe, on the frame, and walks the fuck away.
I did.
And leaves it there for Big John to push it back.
I did. Big John was the owner of CPE.
And we're all like, this guy's a dick, man. Look how he acts.
I get that a lot still, and I'm sorry.
So he that was our first version that we saw of Mac at the time.
Yeah.
So then when we all started ProStar and you started coming to ProStar, I'll never forget, I think the first time that I remember was at Atlanta.
Okay.
It was like the second race of the year. And
which Atlanta just closed, I think, last year.
Yeah. So Atlanta was another race that, a lot of people were, there's so many stories about Atlanta. Yeah. But I remember I do remember, like, I was either 1 or 2 pairs back, and I was like, that's that guy Mac.
Yeah.
And you had your
Around Arms Ammunition.
Yeah.
Yeah, my father's company. Yeah.
So I remember seeing you there, and then kind of, like anything, once you have something in common with somebody and you're from the same area, now we're on a ProStar, and it was like, well, hey, you're from Maryland, and we all race. Let's all start hanging together. Yeah. And that's kind of, I think then, and I think with me and you was like, we're both going to these races. Yeah. Well, fuck. How about I just put my bike in your trailer, or you put your bike in my trailer? And
it would take days for us to say the amount of stories we have over a small 2-3 year period where we teamed up. We'll spare everybody with that, but oh my God, great times.
Yeah, definitely. ProStar, I don't think I can never tell people enough. XDA is great.
It is.
It is great and everything, but ProStar was
in its pocket of time.
Something that was just totally different. Because
I agree.
You literally got people from all over the country. There was guys that were coming from, XDA, it's more, East Coast based, and it's, you know, there's
Yeah.
a couple states. I mean, you get more and more people because it gets so big, but
Yeah.
you literally went and like Top Gas and these classes would have, I mean, 64.
bikes.
I literally
80s.
remember I went to a ProStar and I went 8:19 with a 9
And didn't
and
qualify.
didn't fucking qualify.
That's insane.
There was 60, I think there was like 68 bikes. And I'm like, all I had to do
yeah.
was touch the brake or
Set
let
up.
the fuck off.
Just
And I'm
set
thinking,
up.
oh, I'm on a fucking run. I'm trying to go 8:20. And I fucking.
Now,
don't
mind you,
qualify.
what maybe some younger racers don't know, back in those days, no standalones, no nothing. We didn't have shit. We had a throttle stop, which basically was a delay box, for lack of better terms, hooked to an air ram that looked just like your air shifter, and you had to put the time in how long it would close your throttle, whether it be 3/4, quarter, half throttle. So you had to predict stuff, and we had the beginnings of weather stations back then, and it was a math formula, and I suck at school, you know, from that respect. So it literally was so hard. And the first time that my recollection that we got cool was Gainesville beginning race. It wasn't the World Finals. So the ProStar used to begin the season at Gainesville and ended at Gainesville. And I went down there and I had a motor that was projected to run 780s. Wide open, I went 20 with a 3. And I remember Robbie comes over to me and Robbie's like, "What'd you do?" I was like, "Yeah, I just detuned the shit out of that thing." No, it was wide open. I just dumb luck went 20 with a 3. So just so y'all know, even in 460 today, which we'll touch on that, sometimes you just get lucky. And you got to just pretend like you meant it. And I don't know if y'all do that. I know I do. Do you do that? I mean, it's educated guessing.
I don't know what the fuck it did.
Yeah, it's educated guessing. So, you know, before we move on, we're about to talk about who the members of Legion of Doom are. All right, Rob. So, you know, I think everyone has an idea who all the members of Legion of Doom are, but man, there's so many. Can you list them off? Start from the top. We all know the core.
It's me, Ronnie, and Mark. Mark doesn't race anymore, but you know, he's still in. And then there was, you know, Jerry Ferguson, rest in peace.
Yes,
Johnny Mulligan, rest in peace.
100%.
And then you got Gary Klontz. You have Troy Hausman.
Yeah.
Robin Procopio, of course.
Yeah. Queen of
Force.
I'm sorry.
I think
Queen
Robin's
of Legion of Doom.
Yeah. I mean, if it comes down to women drag racers, I think Robin's you know, she's top two or three. I don't care professional or what. She's the top 2 or 3 racers. You got Ty Mulligan, who's now riding his father's bike.
Yeah.
I mean, doing great. My brother, Tony Hunnicutt.
Yeah.
And then you got a couple other people that have kind of have reached out, which is to me is kind of crazy.
Before you say the reach out, let's not forget Michael.
Yeah,
my drinking partner.
Michael
my
Parsons.
late night drinking partner. Joe Procopio.
Michael
my late
Parsons.
night drinking partner. Nate Dogg. Nate's my guy. We're missing you this year. I hope that shit gets straight. I think you got the sham. That's my opinion. We'll leave it there.
It's been, you know, and that's why I don't want to miss out on anybody.
Yeah.
It's,
no disrespect
you know,
for forgetting anybody.
T. Parker.
Oh, that's unspoken. Yeah.
You know, you got.
Yeah, I didn't write all of them down.
Yeah,
I knew you mentioned Troy.
I mean, it's really just. I mean, through the years, it's just been, you know,
multitude.
Yeah. I mean, you used to.
Yeah. I was there for a minute.
Jason. Miller was in it.
Jason was there.
Most people
Shout
don't
out
know
to
that.
Jason Miller.
Yeah, because there's actually a trailer that was Jason's that riding around that had
Still,
Legion of Doom
it said
on it.
Racing Jason and Legion of Doom on the back of it.
Yeah. You know, Jason. Like I joke with Jason. He's not as young as I remember. You know, when we were growing up, when he was a teenager, I used to always make fun of him that he'd come up and tag on my shirt or Ronnie's shirt.
Didn't he ride when he started? He rode a CBR.
Yeah, CBR 900. I believe.
Jason,
or maybe it was a CBR 600. It was a CBR. It might have been 900. I think it was.
Yep.
And
saw you on.
Pinks. I honestly believe. I think he won his first real race. He came down to Budge Creek and raced.
Yeah.
You know, I never said this, but I think they manipulated the back then I think they could control the wind lights.
Royce was in there moving some shit. Yeah.
But I just remember that. And I used to give him shit about all the time.
Yeah.
Royce, I think Royce and Linda dreaded when he started hanging around with me.
Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah. Especially you back then. Because I'll be honest, and I'm not kissing his ass, and that'll lead into the next thing, is all the classes that Robbie has run, I can proudly say I beat him to only one class, and that's Pro My Car.
Yeah.
But every other class, this guy has set the precedence. You were doing Outlaw Pro Street when there were no standalones, there was no whatever.
Yeah.
You about killed yourself, flipped over, bent handlebars.
Yeah, me and the Outlaw stuff got started. Was really me and Steve Wood.
Yeah, Steve Wood.
Steve.
Boo Brown owned that bike. Got a bitch in the picture of Boo on that bike sideways.
Me and Boo actually we raced in the finals in one of the Outlaw.
In one of the Outlaw races? I did not know that.
There's a picture. I still have a picture of it. The thing that was, which I felt bad, was because I had the faster bike.
Okay.
My bike, we ended up having problems. And I think the starter clutch or something. I can't remember exactly.
Your bike was black and silver back then? Because it wasn't the Superman bike back then, was it?
Yeah, it was the Superman bike.
The first bike, I'm sorry, I'm going to give a shout out to Chuck Buckler. The reason Chuck Buckler and I have become so tight-knit and all my themes have really blown up, no disrespect to Ryan Young and Endossel, because he kills it with my helmets, and the Bandit and the Boss Hog bike. But Chuck Buckler's first paint job of this man's motorcycle, with the two fists on the front.
That's what kind of got everybody.
Blew it up.
I mean, Chuck, I don't want to say, like, Chuck, so many people started going to Chuck. And there was people that had went to Chuck before, but
of course,
like in the bike world stuff, Chuck was really big in pro mod cars and everything.
Oakley funny cars back then.
Yes, and Chuck Buckler, for those that don't know, he literally, he painted Oakley's fucking airplane.
Yeah,
I mean, he did all kinds of shit.
He did the first Transformers tractor trailer. I don't know if most know. His resume is ridiculous, but in my mind, and I think the motorcycle
the thing that happened with me and Chuck was me and Chuck. I used to always have J&J. You know, Jesse Pritchett was one of my best friends growing up, stuff, bike stuff. And Jesse, when Jesse got into painting, my bike was the first bike that he ever painted.
Yeah.
So
was it Maximum Destruction? What was the name of the bike? It was yellow.
No, the red and yellow bike was painted by Barney Squires. That was the Lethal Weapon bike. That was
I didn't mean to.
That was the first bike. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody named their bikes back then.
Yeah, it's cool.
They just had bikes.
Sidebar, they're coming out with Lethal Weapon 5.
Right. I started all the naming of the bikes and making the themes.
So you just putting that brand on yourself.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, now it's everything.
It's
everybody has a name for something.
Not me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not you.
Very good.
I mean, even you. I got you. I drug you into it because you were like, "I'm not doing that." I'm like, "You got to come up with a theme." That's how the Dukes of Hazzard. I was like, "Man, make it something that you." I said, the Superman thing. Even Jesse painted all my bikes throughout the year. I had the Hellraiser bike.
Hellraiser bike's what I was thinking about.
I had the Hellraiser bikes. I had like 3 or 4 of them. I had the Barney did the first one. Okay. The Lethal Weapon, and then Jesse was doing them.
Okay.
And at the time, Jesse, I think J&J, which was Jeff Craze and Jesse Pritchett.
Okay.
They split. Business kind of got, I think, overwhelming for Jesse.
For sure.
And he painted all my, I'll be honest, he painted all my stuff for free for probably 6-7 years.
You had a ton of support over the years. That's all.
Chuck, literally, I met Chuck at Barney's Squires, which was Performance Autocrafters back in the day. Yeah. And you talked about Ronnie having the purple and orange bike.
Yeah.
I took Ronnie with me to take, had already talked to Barney about painting my bike. I had this GSXR that I was getting painted, and I told Ronnie, I said, "Hey, why don't you ride with me?"
Yeah.
Ronnie went. He was like, at the time, it was like he wasn't painting his bike. We went up there, and I want to say I was paying Barney was going to kind of do a sponsor thing. He was painting the bike for $500, and even at that time, for $500 was a lot of money.
Okay. Yeah.
Everybody was like $500, you know.
Yeah, look what we pay now.
Yeah. Well, they were like $500.
Yeah.
Well, when we get there, at the time, Barney's was the place to get a Pro Mod car. Scotty Cannon's cars were in there getting painted.
Yep.
I mean, every Pro Mod that was on the IHRA scene back then was in there. The Gone in 60 Seconds car, all these cars were in there being painted.
Yeah.
And we went in there, and Barney, you know, me and Barney kind of hit it off, you know, I met Barney at the World of Wheels.
Okay.
So we started talking, you know, about, I'm like, man, you know, let me paint my bike. I got, you know, and he's like, what do you want to do? I said, man, I'll drop it off and let y'all do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Well, when we went to pick my bike up, well, Ronnie comes with me. So Ronnie comes with me. Ronnie kind of like shoehorns himself into the deal. He's like, well, hey, I'll bring my bike up here too. You can paint mine. You do mine for $500. Well, Barney was kind of caught off guard because here he tells me how much he's giving me a deal, and now Ronnie's getting his done.
Very unlike you, Ron.
And so Ronnie shows back up with his bike.
Yeah.
He ends up, I think he painted Ronnie's Corvette too. He did a bunch of stuff for Ronnie also at the time, but he painted Ronnie's. Well, we go up to pick the bikes up.
Yeah.
Well, Ronnie doesn't like his paint job. Because Ronnie was expecting a wild, out of the, you know, crazy paint job. Yeah. My paint job at the time was like something people hadn't seen. It was basically he took Eddie Van Halen's guitar and incorporated it into my bike with these shreds going down the side of it and everything, and it said Lethal Weapon on the tail. Ronnie gets there. We load the bike, the bodies and everything up in the bike, and we're going out, and Ronnie is fucking pissed. He's like, I paid $500 for this motherfucker, put a stock paint job. All he did was change Ronnie's colors. He did the same thing. It was purple.
Checker flags, if I remember.
Yeah, went back to checker flag and it said Procopio Racing on it. But Ronnie fucking didn't like it. He was like...
Why I know that is because I saw a lot of the background of Ronnie.
He didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
But his bike got a lot of attention because it was it was clean.
Yeah.
It was, you know... And so then we go, like I said, with Chuck. Yeah. So I ended up having Jesse he started painting. Jesse started painting my stuff.
Yeah.
I met Chuck at, I believe, World of Wheels, and just kind of through people I knew, Stefan and
Stefan.
Yeah, Stefan was friends with Mark.
Yeah.
Chuck painted a bike for Mark. That's how it got started. He painted the Menace to Society. Mark had built like a Top Gas / Pro Stock bike.
Yeah, I remember it.
And Chuck was like, man, you need to, you know, build or let me paint your bike.
Yeah.
Well, when Jesse, all the stuff was going on with J&J and I had dropped my bike off and couldn't get painted. Well, we had a race coming up.
Yeah.
It was our Outlaw race, first race of the year. And I had just had this bike built and here he's painting for free. Well, the free shit ain't paying the bills.
No.
So my shit sat to the side.
Yeah,
well, I walked in one day and was like, just started picking my stuff up.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well, fuck, I got a race in a week and a half. I said, I got to be, I think we were going to Rockingham, the first race of the year. And I was like, look, I got to be in a race, man. I got to take my shit. I got to go. I got to get my bike together.
Yeah.
Well, when I left there, I literally picked up the phone and I called Chuck. And I had never really called Chuck before. I mean, I saw him out and we would.
What's the year, if you don't mind? Just give it a 3-year.
90.
Oh shit.
5, 96, something like that. Whenever, right? It was. I had ran one. I had the black with the silver.
That's how I remember.
Flames on it.
It had a katana body and a headlight.
Right. Yeah, I had that. That was my. That was literally.
What's your best on that bike?
730? 40s. I think that was my second bike. The
now, mind
first
you,
bike.
I don't mean to interrupt, Rob, but 730s. So for all of y'all that think you're like just blistering the boards up now, we had no standalones. We had nothing of the sort. We had no wheelie sensors. We had no wheel speed sensors. We didn't have any of that shit. And this man in Outlaw Pro Street, long before I got in it, probably 4 years before I got in the class, was the most entertaining class to watch because these guys were fools. Sorry.
The first bike I had was a GSXR 1100 water cooled that I had Cody Adams do.
Okay.
And went like, I think like 820s, 8.1s with that. Yeah. And at the time,
790 was best?
790, because Steve Wood at the time was his
dad. Top dog.
His dad was Pop Wood was the coolest fucking guy you'd ever meet.
I never met.
And Pop Wood was a straight up gangster when it came to fucking drag racing.
Okay.
They built a fucking Vega back in the day, painted this motherfucker pink.
No shit.
And fucking would go grudge racing, street racing with this thing all over.
Awesome.
They raced Mike Castellana before Mike Castellana was Mike Castellana.
I got you.
Yeah,
Okay,
they ran him on the street back in the day. And
good stuff.
so Pop, and literally, I was always the, I guess if you want to say the, I'm supposed to be the conservative one, the one that used his head and thought, well, Pop Wood sends me and Steve on a trip to ProStar to find him a motorcycle.
Oh, shit.
Now, Steve had a GSXR 1100,
Okay.
black and silver, stretched out like a 1990. Yeah. Probably went like, I don't know, maybe 890s, maybe 860s. It was pretty fast. Had nitrous on and everything.
Yeah.
Well, Pop sees that Steve is starting to get good in this. You know, he's doing a lot of. Steve would go to the race,
He's killing it,
and he went literally for whoever was the top dog. He went right after Keith Dennis. Steve and Keith Dennis were some of the funniest motherfuckers when they would be in the racetrack. Oh,
really?
Steve would dig in Keith Dennis's ass, and
Come
Keith
back,
would go
Steve.
back and forth.
Yeah.
Steve, and you know, he did all kinds. Steve was the first one in this area to have a full out, like I'm talking a 75-inch fucking outlaw bike. Yeah. He had a GSXR.
Did Timlin do that for him back in the day?
No.
Athenas?
He had, this was kind of I think Kobe Adams swing arm. Okay. I think it was Kobe or somebody. Matter of fact, it wasn't. It was a local guy. That's right. He bought a swing arm, and a local guy extended this motherfucker, and it was so long. No shit. He had the long ass body. He had Jesse painted it.
Oh yeah.
It was gold. It was
gold
color.
Yeah,
it was a gold color.
Yeah.
And it had all kinds of. It was it was so busy.
Yeah.
But Steve and when he had that, Pop started coming to the races.
Okay.
So Outlaw was in its infancy. It was at the time. It was like you had Tommy Maselli, who at the time nobody understands.
Badass.
Tommy Maselli had a bike that was literally
GS.
It was a GS.
Was it Phil Gonish's bike?
No, he rode that. He rode that and Street Shootout.
Yeah.
But this was it was Ed Murphy's. It was Murph. It was Ed Murphy's dad.
Okay.
Rest in peace,
okay.
Murph. Well, they had a bike that everybody else was out there going like 790s.
Yeah.
And Murph and Tommy show up at Rockingham with this fucking bike.
Yeah.
And it's called, I believe they called it the Gangster. Okay. And this motherfucker
Sounds
shows
deservedly
up.
So
this
by
motherfucker.
The way you're talking.
And I mean, like Tommy was another one that kind of, if I don't like some stories that I could tell about him.
That's a whole nother.
Yeah. Well, Tommy was, he was a guy that was kind of like Billy, like he was part of the Franco crew. Joe Franco, to me, is probably one of the best. He was, an engine builder
in his time.
Ahead of everybody at the time.
For sure. I agree.
There were so many Franco's Performance.
Yes, sir.
Bikes at ProStar back in the day.
Yeah, Pro mod from every class.
Yeah, and they show up at the race with this thing. This black GS, got a 1150 body, long as shit on it.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, man. Here I had my water cooled bunch of, Johnny Locklear was racing, and Joe Long, I think, might have just started racing.
Bernard Cannon wasn't on.
Bernard Cannon was there, okay. But at that time we were only going 790s, 80s.
Okay.
That was like, if you went 790s, you were fucking flying.
Killing it, yeah.
And fucking they roll
this
out.
had to be 01.
This 2000. Is early. Yeah. And fucking Tommy goes up this motherfucker, and I'll never forget, goes 744.
Mm.
And you talk about shocking the motherfucking world. This motherfucker just outran everybody by a half a second.
Yeah.
And it was like,
how do you put rules on that?
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Outlaw at that time, that's when everybody was like, oh my God, this class here is off the fucking chains.
Yeah.
And the next year,
that's
bike,
off to Jason for coming up with rules to figure that out.
Shortly after that, well, that really wasn't Jason. That was before
Who was making the rules back then?
Back then it was
Royce?
Phil Davis.
Oh, Phil Davis. Okay,
So Phil Davis was kind of in there
Okay.
with because Rockingham was where that kind of started. That wasn't even a My Rock thing.
I remember. Yep.
And literally, when he did that, I mean, it was like that's all anybody could talk about because he's going as fast as fucking pro stock bikes were going at that time.
No wheelie bar with small tire.
Small tire. This motherfucker went faster than I think at the time. I think he went faster than Dave Schultz had the record, and he went faster than him. And it was like, oh my fucking God, what has just? I mean, it opened up the floodgates.
Yeah.
And then after that, everybody was like GSXRs. Most of the people, because you got to remember, like all these people that are running, like. Most people don't know Timmy Edinger.
Yeah,
he's
a bad man.
GSXR.
I'm telling you, he stomped mud holes in all of us.
He literally, he had a GSXR. There was a couple.
Even before, wait a minute, before you say that, he had a GS with a turbo.
Well, this was after. After he went to turbo. He was the first one to come with a turbo.
With the GSXR. Yes.
Well, he came with a. I remember. Nobody else really.
I'm overstepping.
Nobody. I won't say nobody because there was what's his face Barry
Barry Henson.
Barry Henson came and ran with a turbo, and ran good. Yeah. But I think that's what kind of got everybody started. And then you had Jeff Nordine, rest in peace.
Rodney.
But before Rodney, so Demi and them show up with this GS turbo bike.
Yeah.
And everybody literally was like, oh, it's a turbo. It ain't going to run. They're never going to be able to.
704.
So they go out and they ran. Well, after that race, again, somehow or another, I end up being kind of like one of the mouthpieces or one of
the... I thought that was me.
No, I'm talking about like one of the people that... Everybody starts calling. What are we going to do? This and that. Well, I get a phone call from I believe Dan Wagner.
Okay.
At the time, and this was before Dan was doing stuff for me. But I believe I talked to Dan, and they were telling me that they were going to boycott the next race.
Yeah.
And this was, I think, the WPGC race. Mm-hmm. So I'm talking to everybody else. Like, what's everybody going to do? Well, I'm not going to boycott a race that's in my back fucking yard.
I agree.
And that's what I'm saying. Everybody's like, if everybody has to boycott. You can't just, if you show up, they wanted to make it so that just Edinger showed up with this turbo bike.
Yeah.
Well, me, being me, and knowing Royce the way I knew him, I called Royce.
Deeper rooted.
Yeah, I called Royce, said, Royce, I got to talk to you. Something you need to go. Well, motorcycle racing to Royce, I think at the time was kind of like,
take it or leave it.
It was like Jason's kind of thing, Jason, like, he hated the fact, like, when we didn't rent the track. Well, Jason would just say, hey, come on now, we're going to test. So me, Steve, and Jason were kind of a team, and Jason wanted to build an Outlaw bike. He got one. And Royce was never really a fan of that. Royce was so, like, we would be over there testing, and Jason would go like a career best or whatever, and Royce would come over and be like, and I told Royce, I literally pulled Royce aside and was like, man, why are you giving this motherfucker so much heat, man? Yeah. I said, you forget that I used to be the guy watching you fucking race. And now this motherfucker's following in your footsteps. And he was like, we got a track to run. He don't need to be out here wasting his money and stuff. He needs to be here racing. Him racing is taken away and all this. And I'm like, how are you going to give this? I had so many battles back and forth with Royce about that. Yeah. But needless to say, I called Royce and I said, Royce, look, you need to know what's going on, man. Yeah. Y'all are going to have to do something about the rules. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, dude, I might be the only other person other than Edinger that is going to show up. And they were like, what? I said, you might have a couple guys. Brian Rich was a local guy that ran Outlaw. Steve, I think at that time, Steve might have just been starting to get out. Pop had passed away, and I think Steve
he got out. He was out.
Steve was starting to get out, and
I was in. I was honestly in. I remember getting the same, whether it's Psycho Bike message,
so
whatever the hell it was. But for me, huge friends till this day with Rodney and Jeff, and rest in peace, Jeff. So to see how it went down, but I'll never forget my take on it is telling Rodney, you're looking over at me at the finish line and rolling off running 7.0s, man. How many times have you been in the 6s? And he laughed and said never, and I'll let you pick the story up.
Well, So I'm talking to Royce, and I'm telling Royce, well, Royce's attitude at the time was, fuck Outlaw.
Yeah, fuck y'all.
Y'all want to do that?
Yeah.
If they do that, there will be no more Outlaw at any My Rock race.
Yeah.
And I was like, hold on, man, I'm fucking fully invested in this. I got like
we got
3-4 fucking motors.
Yeah.
I got 2 bikes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all in on this. So for that to take that away, it was like, ho ho. So I'm scrambling, calling everybody, man, you can't do this. They're going to cancel the class. The guys from Florida at the time were like, fuck it, because they were still able to race down. They were doing like local races in Florida, doing some races here and there, and
they didn't care.
I mean, I think they were back then. They might have even been racing against the cars.
They were. They had delay box. I remember Tony Giardi had a delay box running 7.0s.
Yeah, so they were doing all that type of stuff, and I think they ended up cooler heads prevailed, and they did come. Well, I don't say cooler heads prevailed because they did ban the turbo, which I thought in my mind at the time was
brash.
I thought it was fucked up because Edinger and them were such cool guys. Him and Andy were such cool guys, and
so was Rodney.
They stepped out of their comfort zone, which was nitrous. They were doing nitrous bikes, and they literally stepped out and like, hey, they saw I think what Barry Henson did coming over there and ran good, and they were like, well, shit, maybe that's the ticket to go. And they went and they ran fast, and then got penalized for it. Which and in a way, I understand sometimes that you gotta, but I think that's like with me with the Pro Nitrous versus Pro Boost stuff. Yeah. It's hard for any organization to keep two combinations parity.
Yep.
What the best thing they could have hoped to do was maybe come up with a way that you could maybe start bringing at the time they could have maybe bring the Pro Street turbo bikes in. Hey, you guys come, put a flat slick on it, you guys can run, we'll create a class for you.
Right. Hindsight, you can play Monday morning quarterback, and it really sucks because Rodney, I'll never forget, Rodney put stickers on his bike pissing on nitrous bottles, and I love you, Rodney, and you came right out the next race, and you can correct me, and I'm sure you'll comment on this, and if I'm a lucky guy, you'll subscribe. But I think next race you went 691 and showed everybody exactly what we already knew, how fast you really were.
But I think that was later on because
it was later in the year.
Yeah, but I don't think.
When he got those, you got.
But I'm saying when Edinger, this is when Edinger got.
They didn't ban the turbos until Rodney was running.
Right, but I'm saying you got to remember before Rodney came in, Jeff was running.
Yeah.
So he got Jeff's bike. So Jeff was running, and at the time, Jeff and John really weren't going that fast. They were having issues. They were wheeling. They were doing a lot of stuff.
Brandon Fargo was in on that whole.
So a lot of people, they weren't a threat, so they didn't complain about it.
Nobody gave a shit.
Right.
Yep.
Until somebody comes along and figures it out. And then all of a sudden now they did all that.
Not to clip that, let's parlay into 460. And this is fresh. And the reason it's fresh to me is I wear the Elite 460 there. Fortunately, Robbie Hunnicutt created this side sanction, if you will, that I am unbelievably grateful for. And I think I speak for most of 460. And I know I speak for 19, 20 of us that paid our money into that. Is 460 is so healthy, so badass. Like going into next week's race, we have 52 bikes on there. I'm not bragging by any stretch of imagination. I've won the biggest 460 race, 50 couple bikes, whatever ended up being. I think 56 entered. Who knows what qualified. I'm not trying to be that guy to brag, but a brand new thing was just brought up last race at Virginia is people are complaining about no wheelie bar bikes in 460. And I don't know who is. And I'm not saying I know who is. There's no undertone because I'm that guy. I think everybody knows that will call that out. I have zero problem with a no-bar bike running 460. It's an index class. I don't care how you get there. Do I think you got the mountain to climb? Buddy, you got a mountain and a mountain attached to that to climb to print the tickets that most people do in 460. But for me let me ask you this. Is it fair for us to go, are we turning a blind eye because they're not competitive? Is this outlaw all over
No. I mean, I don't think that's even an issue because I talked to Jason when I got a phone call about that when it happened and asking me my opinion on it, and I didn't even know there was an issue.
Yeah.
Because I know like little Nick runs.
Yeah. Dwayne Jackson is going to be on one.
Well,
Savoy fella rides Jeff Nordine's old
Yeah.
bike. I think it's Jeff's old bike.
Yeah, it is Jeff's old bike.
Yeah.
But when I saw Nick start running at I think 2 or 3 races ago, whatever it was, when he was coming, and I went over and talked to him, I was like, oh damn, run, you gotta. How fast has this been? I was interested because it took me back to Outlaw days, because that's kind of where that's where the
I went
Outlaw
55
bikes. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I went to 455 in 2007 in Outlaw.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. That's 450s was going fast.
Yeah. Sure. Yep.
And I was like, so I knew it was capable of doing it.
Yeah.
I just for a 1000, but now these 1000s, these grudge bikes, what I hear they go blows my fucking mind anyway.
Me too. Yeah.
But I think it's because of they're so light, everything, whatever it is, the combination just works.
Yeah.
And I don't, like I said, I don't care. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't care if somebody came on a fucking 4-wheeler.
Neither would I.
If the motherfucker goes 460, you're just running an index.
It's an index.
And so I did call Jason when I found out about it.
What was his take on it, if it's okay to share?
Jason said that he didn't even, nobody really made a big stink to him about it. I said, well, I got, somebody reached out to me about it because of the Elite 460 stuff.
Yeah.
And he said that, he's like, why would I care? It's an index, right? And I said, exactly. And he said the only thing that he was hoping that it wouldn't do would be like, all of a sudden you have everybody getting rid of their wheelie bar bikes and getting these bikes. And the reason being is because
an image of the class.
The problem with my take of what and I could be wrong, but I think that one of the issues with motorcycle drag racing is, and what it's become, back in the day, like when the ProStar days, every class had its own like kind of identity.
You're right.
You had top gas bikes were basically, that was the class that was like the leading into top or pro mod or pro stock, and those bikes resembled that class.
Sure.
Now, as you got in lower classes, the bikes kind of diminished. Not taking anything away, but they were like, instead of big tire bikes, you started having small tire bikes. Then you had a 600 Super Sport class, which looked nothing like the other drag bikes. So people, whatever fans you had in the stands could literally look at a class and say, oh, I know what this class is. Mm-hmm. But I think now the classes have become so, everything's just a boost or a 1000 with a swing arm on it.
It's too easy to buy one.
You can't really tell. Well, didn't I just see that bike running 460, and then now it's over here and Pro ET, and so I think that's one thing that the bike organizations themselves are dealing with, because when people come to a race, they don't really, they can't really tell the difference between
they want
things.
An identity of
it's like, well, fuck, I don't even know what's running. I mean, so it's hard for a fan that's not involved in the sport to literally tell what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Jason was kind of saying, is that he didn't want it to all of a sudden turn into be, 20 wheelie bar bikes and then 20 bikes with just a long swing arm on them.
Yeah.
And I think because then it takes away from the class. Right now, the class, because of, and it's all a facade. They look like they're, unleashing a beast when it leaves the line. Yeah. And the Outlaw was the same thing. Outlaw lost its identity when all of a sudden you had all the different electronics came in, and you were able to, now you could control. Nobody's wheeling anymore. Outlaw, everybody flocked to the fence and to the stands, because I mean, literally, I had a fucking bike. I had a wheelie at 1,000 foot. Yeah. Motherfucker stood straight up, and I went through the finish line going 740. So for that to happen, and think like, holy shit, I'm gonna fucking crash this thing, and that's, you never knew what was gonna happen. Yeah. 460 is kind of in that way, only because 460 back used to be what pro mods ran. Yeah. That's literally what
true. I remember.
That's literally what.
Like, oh my god.
That's literally what, when I first started running pro mod, they went 680. 680 was flying. Yeah. 690, 70s, you were fast. Yeah. But that's around where you went with 460.
Yeah.
So now for these bikes to go 460s, and you're literally fucking bracket racing them in a way, is even more insane, because I remember back when we were running top gas, running 820, a bunch of us were pushing for it to be 790.
Yeah.
Because we were like, hey, if pro stocks are going 750s and now they're going 7.0s
So
and we're going 820s, that's a big jump to take somebody off a top gas bike and get them into pro stock. So we need to be 790s. Well, the whole thing at ProStar at times, you can't bracket race a fucking 790 bike. I mean, I bracket raced my fucking Outlaw bike going, dialing it at ProStar. I remember I was dialed in like 740.
Yeah.
And they were like, how the fuck you? I mean, I went rounds on it.
Yeah,
I never won a ProStar race with that bike, but I did go rounds running 740s on a bracket racing it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that was all that Jason is worried about. I don't think that it really matters what you're on. If it's an index. So I don't really, like I said, I don't care if you're on a fucking jet bike.
Yeah.
You still have to run 460.
The number is the number, and what you've done with the Elite 460 for me, I personally thank you so much.
That's my biggest thing. It isn't me. It's everybody, because I just came up with an idea that I thought, and when Jason made the races, only 5 races for XDA, I just know what I have invested in 460 bikes, and you have way more than I have invested in it, just because you have 2 now.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's, I mean, everybody. And I just was like, man, we have all these motorcycles with so much invested in them. And if you want to run for a championship, if you miss a race or you lose first round with only 5 races, you're kind of out of it.
Yeah.
You can't even get on a little run to try to win. So I was like, I just started thinking, I was like, some of the car, like you won a Northeast Outlaw Pro Mod race back in the day, and that really is what they are. They're a club.
Yep.
And I talked to John Maserati, the owner of it, about it, and I was just, asking him like how it got, and it's hard to believe that he's been doing it now over 25 years.
Wow.
They've been literally a race club. They've never been an organization. They're a club.
They're a club, just like Elite 460.
Right, and that's what I wanted Elite 460 to be, was a club that basically we all get together.
Yeah.
We create our own money, our own points fund, and the first year, I just thought that, hey, if we could get 16 bikes, if we could get 16, I mean, we literally have 15 bikes in the point series.
I was going to say 19.
No,
we only have
it's
15
that paid, which you have to understand. $500 that people have put up to run with us, and they really didn't have to. They could still run with us and not put up the $500.
Yeah.
So for me to see 15 people do it for the first year, I've been blown away, because I honestly only thought when I started talking to everybody at the last race of last year, which was Lance's race for Carolina No Time.
Thank you, Lance, for everything you do.
I went to Lance and I asked Lance about it. If we did this, would he let us race with him?
Yeah.
And I actually texted with Lance last night about it. He was asking us, are y'all going to race any with us? And we are racing. Our last race of the year is at Lance's
October?
His Halloween race.
Great race.
Yeah. So if you're racing 460, definitely come. It's a great time. Lance makes us one of the premier classes.
He does.
He basically, runs us when we want to run, gets us up there.
Yep.
Takes care of us tremendously.
The track is packed. It's an awesome show of cars, bikes, meaning us, 460s. Don't miss it.
Yeah. So, I mean, next year, like I told Lance last night, next year I'm hoping that we can do, this year we wanted 9 races. And just because I didn't want us to be going to races where we only had 8 bikes show up, and because I don't think that looks good on the class. So I suggested everybody, let's do 1 race a month, and which I know people would race. Some people like yourself would probably race every other weekend if you could.
Yeah, if I could. Yeah.
Everybody can't do that, which is understandable. And so like I think like next year maybe over the wintertime we'll talk, get the group together. It's at least the 15 guys that are in it.
Yeah.
I'd like to everybody get together and kind of talk about it, maybe adding a couple races. I would definitely like to, because Lance definitely, he wants us there, and that makes a big difference.
That's huge.
So I want to be able to see if we can get a couple more races, even if we don't, like we do you don't have to make every, like now you have 1 race you can throw out. Maybe do something. We'll have to all talk about it and see what we can come up with.
But I don't know if anyone knows or even cares, but there's huge standouts, and I'm not being disrespectful, that wouldn't expect it to be a standout that came out of nowhere that are in the front of this Elite 460, and just know that this is a class and a series anyone can win any given round, any given day.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to have.
You don't have to have. That's what I think is so alluring. If you want to say the allure of the class is that there's so many different styles of bikes.
Absolutely.
You have people like my brother's bike, which is a
small tire.
Yeah,
in our
it's
world,
a 10-inch tire.
Yeah.
It's only 70 inches long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pro stock bike.
Yeah, basically a pro stock bike that he's running, and now that we finally have it straight, I mean he's went 3 rounds last race.
It's awesome. Happy for.
Should have went more, but had issues with battery, charger, and stuff. But regardless, I think that's what so many people that have come into the class, that they see. Hey, like Darian Payne won 2 races ago,
killed it,
and literally, like I went to the owner of the bike, to Butch, and was like, hey, we for you guys that don't know, we do a last man standing deal, which is over and above the entry fee for the Elite 460. So just to explain it, at our races that are basically Elite 460 only, not in the XDA, we do an entry fee of $300.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do that, and then on top of that, whoever wants to get in it, we get a last man standing deal, which is $200 more.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you, not everybody does it. Some people it's too much money. But talking about Butch and Nanu, when they won the race, before the race started, I went to Butch and I said, Butch, $200, man. I said, right now we have I think it was 20, whatever, however many it was. I said, if you win the race, Butch, you can win like $9,000.
Yeah, $9,000.
And
for a total entry of round numbers 500.
Yeah, $500 to win $9,000. And he was like, man, I can't do it. I just don't have the money to do it. Well, needless to say, Nanu wins the race, beats Troy Houseman in the final, and Troy walks away with
3,200, 3,300, whatever the math was.
Whatever it was, he walked away with more money than the guy that won the race.
That's winning if you didn't win.
And
congratulations.
Afterwards, I talked to Butch. I went over to him. I was like, man, I told you for $200, man, you would have walked away with $9,000 instead of 3 or whatever it was.
Whatever
they made the split was. Yeah. I said, Troy literally won more money in the last man standing than he did in the race.
Yeah.
So
well, not to clip your story, like the biggest race, just ask Fabian, because people find me all the time that he loves to talk about it.
Yeah, but you got it. Those are the races that you need to hype up, because those are the races that we want more of. So a race that you win $12,000 at,
$12,400. The last man standing was $8,400. Whatever the math is off of that, I'm too stupid. Don't have my phone in front of me to tell you. It was more than the actual race. $8,400 in the last man standing. So to go 6 rounds in 460 to take out the likes of Ronnie in the final, the only thing trumps that for me is winning, battling cancer. But the amount of money, just to make it pertinent to everybody else, how there isn't 110 bikes in 460, I don't know. Sorry.
Well, and I think with the economy, the economy the way it is, I'm really like, I talked to people before the race season started, and Dion Kennedy with DKR, Dion Kennedy Racing. I called Dion over wintertime, explained to him what we were doing, and he told me at the time, he's like, look, 460. He's more of a grudge for cars. It doesn't really do. They don't really ever really have that many bikes show up. They tried to have a couple bike races, and it really didn't pan out. And for you guys that don't know, Dion was. He was a bike racer for years. I used to do Dion's motors, do stuff, everything for Dion. Yeah. And he won plenty of races doing it. He traveled ProStar with us for years. Yeah. And, he was just like, man, I just don't know that's a fit for me. And I said, well, let's just, let me try, we'll come there. It's not going to cost you a dime. Yeah. Let us just see if we can do it. Well, when we got there, we ended up having
first race of the year,
40-degree 40-degree temperature outside.
Yeah.
We literally had 16 people show up.
That's awesome.
And after the race, I had so many people that were in the bike world call me and want to know, how did I get 16 bikes to show up for a race that had the weather forecast of being high 40s.
Yeah.
And for it to be the first race of the year like that, how and I just told him, I said, look, man, I think everybody really believes in what we're doing.
Yeah.
They wanted to be a part of it. And I think it really showed. And it's just kind of, it's grown. I mean, even showing up there, we only had, I think, 7 people signed up, 7 people that had paid their $500
getting that light there
to get there. So I was starting to think that
this might
really be it may be what I really kind of was worried that we were only going to get like 7 or 8 guys. But I was thinking, hey, if we get 7 or 8 guys, it's still a good payout for everybody. With you figure $300 a person, 3 rounds, win $2,400. Good fucking payout.
Right.
So I was thinking that was going to be good. But then the more, as the season started getting closer, more and more people were calling me about it. And they were...
just to backtrack, thank you, Dion, for giving us the opportunity and a platform to race on.
Yeah. I mean, Dion called me and was just like, man, I can't believe you did it. He said they tried to have a 460 bike race before and got 2 bikes. And he's like, I don't know how you did it. Whatever you did, it's working. Keep it up.
Yeah, for sure.
And I really think it's just the guy, everybody that is racing, from what I understand, from what I've talked to people, everybody really believes in the class, and they see that
100%.
Everybody. It isn't like a heads up class where the guy that has the most money.
Right.
If everybody was sitting there, well, I can't buy what Mac has, or I can't buy what Ronnie has, I can't buy what Robbie has, or Boo, or whoever it is.
Yeah.
They're going to be faster because it becomes cubic dollars.
Yeah.
Instead of just the racing.
Absolutely. Which we're about to lead into that with your car, because that's cubic dollars.
Yeah. And I've, that was the thing with, like, my wife. For you guys that don't know her, she's not a big. I mean, she doesn't mind motorcycle racing because it's what I like doing.
Not her thing,
it's just not her thing. She likes cars.
Sure.
And she's always like, she's been like, you're getting deeper and deeper in this. Now you're racing. You went from just a couple times going to the bike races to you're racing a whole series. You're starting a goddamn series now. We got to wait till the end of every race now because, like, she's used to, like, all right, it's done. Let's load up. Let's pack up. Let's get out of here. And now it's like we're soon. I mean, for you guys that don't know, I've literally fucking sucked a big one this fucking race season.
I wouldn't.
I'm gonna tell you 100% my bike has been the biggest.
First race came out. It came out good first race.
My bike has been the biggest. I want to call it a PETA. And if you guys don't know, it's a pain in the ass.
So, look, we're going to transition into the cars, but career best on motorcycles, give them to me. Outlaw Pro Street.
702.
Okay, what was the mile an hour? 196?
197, I think.
Pro Mod bike.
Pro Mod bike, 680. I want to say 687, I think, at like 201.
I think I know your 8th mile best because it happened in guitar, which we'll share some photos of that.
Yeah.
You killed it in guitar.
Yeah, guitar
won a championship.
Yeah, I mean,
your career best, correct me if I'm wrong, 411.
Yep, 411. 169.
Okay.
And you got to remember that what the Pro Mods were running now in PDRA.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to remember that we're.
Nobody
I had one system.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Now they're running multiple systems.
Yes, I forgot about that.
We had one system.
No standalone, no fuel injection.
No. Pro Series 2.
You're not a light guy, not coming at you.
No. I mean, I literally went out and to this day I still believe that I built the lightest.
Let's prove it, and we really are going to go into cars.
Yeah.
You and I think everyone knows me from a standpoint. Obviously, I've overstepped so many times with my mouth, my attitude, and all that bullshit. For that, I'm sorry, and I'm already going to be sorry for what I don't know I'm going to say. But when Ashley Owens, awesome friend, McKinney's are friends of mine, went $3.99 in Rockingham, everyone stands off their bike and proceeds to give this man applause. And my standpoint on it back then was, fuck that. We need a weight roll because
they were weighing in at it. Ashley, you know, McKinney's, you probably have something different to say. I'm going to say 575 to 585, where Robbie and I built super light bikes, titanium this, that, and the other, and we were 615, 620. We were demanding a weight roll. And Kenny Nowling, you're in 460 now, so maybe you'll tune into my podcast because I watch yours. So
I went to Kenny.
Robbie decided to make a statement. And this is the end of the motorcycles talk. So that statement you made
I went to Kenny, and I
80 RL in its biggest time.
I went to Kenny and I said, look, man, I mean, you got to do something for you're at the time, which a lot of people do remember. I mean, we would have 40 fucking motorcycles trying to qualify it.
16
So
bikes.
if you fucking qualified for 80 RL, you were doing something. You were in an elite group
Bump
at
was
that time.
421.
Yeah, that was an elite group of people at the time.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, people can say what they want. I mean, yeah, I was in the back of that 16.
So was I.
Yeah,
I was right there with you.
I wasn't thinking that, hey, I mean, I did spend fucking, you know, every money, all the money that I could doing it. I was hooked. Fuck, I pretty much retired that one year and said, I'm just going fucking racing.
Yeah.
And didn't work and just raced all year, going to Georgia all the time and testing and spent, you know, time away from home. But I told Kenny, I was like, Kenny, you got to do something, man. I mean, I've literally built the lightest fucking bike you can build.
Yeah.
You cannot, I mean, we cut, you know, I mean, I had Terry Stemper. I told him, I said, I don't care what we have to do. This thing has to be super, super light.
Yep.
And did it, you know, and
your best was
Kenny,
a 411.
Yeah, I mean, well, at that time.
That was overseas, but
overseas.
Here you were like
over
17,
here,
18.
Yeah, like maybe a 16. I think I went 416. Matter of fact, I did. I went 416 when I first came out with a bike.
Yeah.
And which was good. I think I was
2010, folks.
Yeah, I was in the. I went 416 probably in 09.
Okay.
With the bike, and I was probably in the middle of the pack. I was probably 8 or 9, somewhere in there. Yeah. And I was, which was great. I was like, all right, I'm kind of right close to where I could cut a tree. And I was known for, if you want to say, playing games on the Christmas tree. But I had to, because there was no other way I could beat you unless I could get you out of your fucking game.
I don't play
There's literally a 80 RL that Tim Haley, I believe, was taping. And it was, the one I had where I had to run Eric McKinney, and I was literally number 16 qualifier, and this was at VMP.
Okay.
I was number 16 qualifier. Eric was number 1.
Yeah.
And you know, again, Scott McKinney to me is one of the greatest guys in
awesome people. All the
in motorcycle drag racing.
Yes, sir.
Scott's always been good to me. You know, we've always talked, had, you know, good conversations and everything. Yeah. And I've seen Eric grow up. I saw, you know, him start racing as a kid and everything. And it sounds funny when you say you've seen this guy grow up doing this, and that's how long I've been doing this shit. Yeah. But I had to run Eric, and I literally went up there, and I was adamant that I would not stage first no matter fucking what. I was like, and I literally did. Afterwards, they interviewed me about it. Tim did. And but I went up there and I just said, look, I will sit here. I'll run my fucking bike out of gas. I don't care. I'm going to lose anyway. So I might as well make it a fucking show. So I sat there, and Eric, we're both sitting there. We're both pre-staged, sitting there. Finally, I hear Eric go on his two-step. He goes in, and I sit there. And I fucking count. Now I'm just going 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3. And I was adamant that I was going to literally bump in. It had to be when they were dropping the tree. Yeah. And I counted, and I swear I was like 6, 1,000. I went in, and the fucking tree dropped, and I was fucking gone. Yeah. And Eric was almost like he was sitting there like stunned, like what the fuck just happened? Yeah. And I beat him. Yeah. And I was down the bottom end, and Tim Haley comes over, and he's like, you know, oh, man, he goes, some say you fucking hung him out to dry. I'm like, listen, man, if you want to you can run me, I'm going to leave you fucking sitting there. You're going to you might as well just count to 7, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to leave, I'm going to leave you hanging out. Yeah. And, it's what I had to do to beat, you know, being number 16. You got no other chance. At that time, Eric and fucking Ashley were, goddamn, they were fucking the whole class up,
Yep.
beating the shit out of everybody for years.
Yeah, Ken Morrell and John and them, they all were killing us.
Yeah.
But to wrap this up,
Well,
how did you turn
okay, so
this
I went to
whole
Kenny.
thing
I went to
around?
Kenny and I said, Kenny, if you don't fucking do something, I'm definitely going to put someone on my bike. And I'm going to prove a fucking point.
Yeah.
And he was like, what point are you going to prove? And I'm like, I'm going to prove that my fucking bike is the fastest bike out of here.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, yeah, like came in like the,
like you're full of shit.
Yeah, he's like, okay,
yeah.
Superman, all right.
Remember
whatever.
this, Kenny, because I'm going to tag you in this.
So I literally, when I leave the race, I call my friend Crow. For all you guys that don't know, that is Jeremy Teasley's dad. Well, Crow and me raced for years at ProStar. Again, another kid that I saw grow up at the racetrack was Jeremy Teasley and all the other Teasleys.
Yep.
And so I'm talking to them. And matter of fact, I actually, before I called Crow, I called Richard Gadsden. Richard has always been, to me, one of the guys that didn't have maybe didn't have the best equipment or whatever, didn't have the money to race on the level. He always seemed to get good rides, and he's all fast, great racer. But I was like, kind of talk to him. But I think he had a deal with somebody else that he was going to ride something, and so I was like, well, what do you think about Jeremy? And he said, man, I think that's who you should call. So I called
How old
Crow.
was Jeremy at the time? 17?
I think he was 16.
16.
I literally at the time.
Full blown, just to make it parallel, Braden Davis.
Yeah. So I didn't even think he was 16.
Yeah.
So I called Crow. I told Crow what I wanted to do. I said, I'd like to see if Jeremy can ride the bike. He was ecstatic. He was like, oh my God, that'd be great. So we met. I told him, I said, look, you guys are going to have to come to MIR. Mm-hmm. So they drove down, met me there.
They paid you to ride the bike.
Yeah. Well, first, not there. Not there they didn't.
Yeah.
I wanted to prove a point.
Sure.
So I said, look, come to MIR.
Okay.
And I want to put him on a bike. I'm going to make a pass, and then he's going to make a pass. I'm not changing a fucking thing on my bike because at the time I was only going to let him ride it for one race. Sure. I just wanted to prove a point because I thought we could win if I just put him on it.
Just get away real
So
quick.
we get there. I make a pass. I think I went 4:17 or something, 4:18. Mm-hmm. We come down. He gets on the bike. He goes out there first pass. I think he goes like 4:12, something. Mm-hmm. I was like, holy shit. I'm like, he picked up 5 numbers.
Yeah.
Didn't change a fucking thing on the motorcycle.
Yeah.
So we came back.
Gear and nothing.
He makes another pass. I think something happened. Didn't go down the track or something. So we came back. And I was like, all right. And I think I want to say weather or something was coming. So we were like, all right. I said, all right, can you come to Rockingham? They were like, oh yeah, let's go. I said, all right, we're going to go to Rockingham. Going to run there. So I show up and, we get there. He goes out. He ends up being number 2 qualifier. I think he was number 2 qualifier, number 2 or number 3 qualifier.
07, 08?
Something. Yeah, he was in the O's. I think Ashley was like 403, 404, something like that.
Yeah.
So we proceed, wins first round, wins second round. Now he's in the semifinals. He's got Ashley Owens. So still at this time, I have not changed a fucking thing on my motorcycle. I won't change the gearing. I won't change the tune-up. I'm tuning it as if I was riding a bike. So I told him, I said, all right, let's go up here. If you just do what you've been doing, we're going to beat Ashley.
Yeah.
Well, Ashley must have said, I'm not letting this motherfucker beat me.
Yeah.
So Ashley turned his shit up. So he went, at the time, Jeremy went out there, weather came to us. I believe he went 403.
Oh, wow.
Or 404.
Yeah.
And Ashley went 397.
Damn.
To just clip him in the lights.
Wow.
So at that point, I've proven the point that I want to prove.
Absolutely.
That the reason I'm not fucking up in the front is because I'm 190 pounds. And you got people that are 100. I used to call them chicks with dicks because it was these classes.
We weren't liked a lot by a lot of people.
These classes to me were built for little guys that weren't built like men.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So it is what it is.
Yeah. Great to ride motorcycles, just not in a bar fight.
So
yeah.
I'm come back to the trailer. I've kind of like proved my point. I'm happy. So Crow now he's talking to me and he's like, man, the next race is in Columbus.
Norwalk
It was Columbus.
Okay, yeah.
And he was like, man, that's our home track. Is there any way you could, would you let us ride it there? And I'm like, fuck no, I'm done. I proved my point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they had a guy that I don't remember the guy's name. I think it was from down in Georgia, but he came to me and was like, how much would it cost to rent this bike?
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, I don't know. I'm thinking to myself, well, fuck, I want to race, man. I'm a racer. I've never liked letting people ride my shit.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know, man. Fucking like $2,500 or $3,000, whatever it was.
Yeah, whatever it was.
And he was like, done. So then now I'm starting to think, I'm like, well, fuck, I done proved a point now. I mean, shit. What if other people start putting little people on their bikes? I might as well get ready to sell this motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So then me and the guy that I can't remember his name, we start talking. He's going to buy. He wants to buy it. We're coming up with prices. I think we agreed at like 45 or something. He was going to buy the bike for $45,000, which at the time was unheard of. Nobody had sold a bike for that kind of money.
Yeah, for sure.
So we show up at Norwalk or Columbus, and I believe it was Columbus. I don't think it was.
I knew it was in Ohio. I can't remember which track.
I want to say it was
Peter Earl
Columbus.
went
I
back
can't
then.
remember, but I'm pretty sure it was Columbus.
Yeah.
But needless to say, we get there. Crow is in my ear. Man, we need to tune this bike for him. You need to change. And I was like, look, listen, you guys don't realize how easy it is to lose a tune-up.
Yeah.
You may have a tune-up and say, all right, well, I'm going to try something else. And then you go to get back to it and you can't get there.
Yeah.
You fucked up the ingredients for the cake, and now it ain't the same cake.
Yeah, good enough.
So I was like, man, I'm not changing anything. I'm not. He's like, man, come on, let's change the clutch. Let's do this. And I'm like, nah, we're going fast enough to win the fucking race like this.
Yeah.
And we ended up qualifying number 1, ran the table.
Yeah.
I believe we beat Travis in the finals.
Oh, was it Travis?
Yeah, I believe it was
Wow.
Travis. We beat in the finals. At the time, I think he went 4:02.
Yeah.
So like at the time, it was like the second or third fastest pass ever.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
So he ran that. Well, we're on the starting line, and everybody's jumping around, and I'm sitting there, and Kenny Noun comes over, and he's high-fiving, and he don't realize that he's high-fiving me.
Yeah.
So he's like doing it, he's like, yeah, and he's like, man, Superman just won the race and all this, and somebody's like, that wasn't Superman. He's like, yeah, it was. He just won the race. And he turns around, and he sees like,
Wait, you're not on the bike?
yeah, who's riding the bike? And I'm like, that little
you.
kid that I told you I was going to get in the ride. He was like, what? I said, yeah, that's what's going to happen from now on. There's going to be little kids riding. And Kenny was like, oh, we can't have that.
Yeah.
And they came up with the 625-pound rule.
That's the weight rule. And that's the game changer. And not to slight any pro mod bike guys, the ET kind of has gotten a little stagnant since then. Yes, they put round numbers, 35, 40 pounds on them from back then. It's still an awesome class. I'd love to run it just like you would. But juice isn't worth the squeeze. I think my friend, the Davises, I think they won $3,500.
Yeah.
Well, we just said 10 minutes ago that $3,500 is what we get in last man standing. You understand the ingredients difference?
Yeah. Well, it's now, okay, well, I'll wait to tell this one story, too, because I know you want to switch over to...
Yeah, let's talk about the Black Hammer. Black Hammer, tell everybody about your car. Who built the chassis? Who's the motor? Who's the tuner?
Jerry Bickle. The car was originally built for Mike Castellana. I saw it online and was like blown away. My crew chief, Donnie Thompson, he calls me and is like, did you see... At the time, because I was up in the air about building a 67 Mustang, and I was like, man, I want a 67 so bad. And he was like, did you see? He goes, did you see fucking Castellana's new deal? And I'm like, no. He goes, it's the new body style Mustang. And I'm like,
what is that, a 19?
It's a 16
16
2016
body style?
style. So
Yeah.
it's the first year they changed the front end.
whole nose.
The nose and everything. So I see it. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, dude, I got to have that car.
Yeah.
So I called Jerry Bickle. and
Rest in peace, Jerry.
yeah, definitely rest in peace, Jerry. So I called Jerry after I had heard that Castellana was not going to be racing nitrous anymore. He was going to a blower car.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that car's got to be available.
Yeah.
So I called him, and I don't even know what they wanted for it, but I was just like, man, I don't even know if I can afford it, but I got to fucking ask.
Yeah, yeah. Sure.
So I reach out to Jerry. Jerry tells me, well,
is that the time to do a quick recap? He had bought a Vanishing Point car 2014? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 13,
14. He had a Vanishing Point car, got his feet wet in that, had a 700-inch motor then?
No, it had a 900 cubic inch, 903.
Oh, back then. It finished with that.
Well, that was the first motor I bought. It was a
900 inch. Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
And then you moved on to a Stroop car.
Yeah, then I had Wally Stroop build. Well, I had Wally Stroop build a car. He built this one after I had talked to Jerry. So I had talked to Jerry first. I hadn't started building the new one yet. Okay. So I talked to Jerry.
Yeah.
And he's telling me, well, this car they're going to, at the time, Alanabi, they're going to give it to Shannon Jenkins to race. Mm-hmm. So I was like, man. He's like, well, I can build you a new one. I can build you one. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to wait, man. I don't want to wait 2 years to build because that's what he told me. He said it's about 1.5 years, 2 years to get a car built. And I'm like, man, I don't want to wait that long. And he's like, well, I mean, that's what it takes to get one built. Yeah. I was like, all right. So he sends me the price of it, which I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, that's out of my league. I can't afford to buy that car anyway. So what the fuck am I doing? Yeah. So I ended up, my father-in-law was friends with Wally Stroop, and I was looking around at different cars. You know, now I kind of had the Mustang in my mind that nothing else was gonna work unless I found a '67 that. But you just didn't see '67s as a nitrous car. They were all blower cars.
Or the ProCharge cars. But yeah.
So, I reach out to. We go down to talk to Wally Stroop, and my father-in-law knows him. He had some stuff done for him. Yeah. And he tells me everything I want to hear. He's gonna build a car. Mm-hmm. I wanted it built like Bickle built his cars. I didn't want it built. Not at the time. I just said, look, man. There's all the cars that are nitrous cars that are fast are built by Bickle.
Bickle, yeah.
If there's other cars out there that worked. Rick Jones,
for sure.
Jay Cox has, those, and there's McAmis.
Yeah. I mean,
there's plenty of people out there that can build fast cars, but it's
absolutely.
it's kind of like anything else. If you want what's already going fast, then you kind of don't want to have to work at it and try to figure all the shit out.
Yeah.
You buy what everyone else has that's already worked it out, and you then you can go to them and go, hey, well, how can you help me out? Yeah. So I ended up, I decided I was going to let him build his car. Yeah. At the time, I found Carl Stevens had it. He was going to build a Pro Mod Mustang car, and he ended up having a body. So he had posted online. I called him, drove up, bought the body from him.
For the Stroop car?
Yeah, for the Stroop car. Yeah, I bought the body from him. Which saved me because I was going to have to wait I want to say they said 3 months to get the body.
Yeah. Because I think Jim Bell had Mustangs back then. Yeah. Just for the viewers.
Yeah. So he had the body. He was going to build. Decided not to do it. He was not going to build his own car anymore. He was going to get Bickle to build him a car. Okay. Yeah. So he decided that he didn't need the body. He was going to sell it. So I bought the body from him. Took it to Bickle. Or took it down to Stroop, which got my car expedited because now they had a body that they were waiting on stuff to work on other cars so they could get started on mine. So needless to say, got the car, got it finished. Mm-hmm. So I race it for a year. For that year, I race it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, people don't know, I kind of got out of, I had sold all my motorcycle stuff. I literally had, Ed Grothus came down, went in my shop, and I sold him everything I owned that was GS.
Well, you sold your bike, your Pro Mod bike.
Yeah, I sold my Pro Mod bike.
Keith Nichols is still.
Well, it wasn't even Keith. Keith didn't buy it.
Oh hell! I didn't
know there was a guy that had Bad Dog. I think it was Bad Dog Choppers because if you see, it used
so
to say.
That's why it says Bad Dog.
That's why it says Bad Dog.
I did not know that.
Keith was the one that set up the deal to buy it.
Oh shit! Okay.
Because when we were in Qatar racing, Keith was there, and I kind of knew Keith seeing him at races, but I really didn't know him. When we were in Qatar. We all hung out.
Yeah, for sure.
So, hung out with him. And then when I got back and I put it for sale, Keith reached out to me and says, hey, man, I got a guy that thinks wants to buy the bike. So him and the guy drive from, I believe it was Texas. They drove out and the guy bought the bike, spare motor, and everything for I think $45,000. I think is what he gave me for it.
And then Growth has bought everything.
So Growth is when I started racing the car, I was like, oh, let me just sell everything while I got it, so I don't get back. That way I don't try to get back into it.
To get back into it.
So Ed had come. Ed was in North Carolina doing something. He drove up to come up to see me to hang out. For y'all that don't know, Ed,
We're not saying shit, Ed.
I have pictures, Ed.
Yes, we do. We have video.
But
Sorry.
Ed, there's a side of Ed that most people do not know.
Nobody knows.
And
we know Ed. Brunson. We know.
Yes, Brunson.
Yeah.
Brunson literally told me one day that rest in peace, Judy.
Yes.
Definitely. Judy did not like me hanging out with Ed. I was not a good. I wouldn't say role model. Yeah, I wasn't a good influence on Ed.
I'm gonna go with that.
I'll just let Swampwater is Ed's friend. Okay. Back to the
beer
story.
bottles.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So Ed comes to my house. He calls me. He tells me he's coming up. They're heading up to DC to hang out, and he wants to come by the house. So he comes by, and so we start talking. He's like, "Man, I can't believe you sold your bike. Can't believe you're getting out of motorcycle racing. All this stuff, all the fun we had. We're talking."
Yeah.
And he's like, "So what are you gonna do with all this stuff?" I'm like, "Man, I had like, I don't know, fucking bunch of cases. I had all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
20 years of racing at the time.
Yeah.
You accumulate a lot of stuff. So I'm like, listen, man, just." Walk through here.
Yeah.
He takes everything he wants and puts it in a pile in the middle of my shop and goes, "I'm gonna write you a check." And I was like, "All right." He fucking wrote me a check, handed it to me. I looked at it, I said, "That's good." that was it. He loaded that shit up in his truck and he drove away with it. So I had no motorcycle parts, no motorcycles,
so you're
anything.
fully invested.
I'm fully invested in the car until I started building.
The vehicle car.
No, not the big car. When I was building the Stroop car.
Stroop car.
So I'm not.
I
have the Stroop
remember
car.
how the 460 bike.
So I'm with the Stroop car. I'm waiting. It's taking like a year to build.
Yeah.
And I just so happened there's an XDA race or whatever. I might have been I think it was my rock then.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna ride down and see what's going on. Yeah. Well, I go down there and I'm walking around in the pits and fucking talking to everybody. And when you raced with all these people for so many years, you get bit by the bug. I'm like, man, fuck, I ain't got nothing to race. Joe Procopio had a bike. He was talking about getting out of racing. And I was like, damn, Joe, what do you want for it? And he's like, I think he said, man, give me $16,000 for it. Yeah. I'm like, $16,000? He's like, man, I don't give a fuck if you make payments on this motherfucker. Just get it gone. I want it gone. I was like,
that's how Joe is.
I said, deal.
Yeah.
So I took his bike and started racing it, and that became the 460 bike.
Yeah. Here you are.
But
so the struggles. Going back to the car, the struggles with the car that I can speak on, and I'll let you elaborate on, is there's no fun. And when I say there's no fun, don't get that twisted. The camaraderie with the fellow racers with the cars is just the same with the bikes, but the level of multitude of work and commitment you have to put in to the car side of it is astronomical.
Yeah, it's like everybody asks me all the time. They're like, man, what do you like best? Do you like the cars? Do you like the bikes? What is it?
Yeah.
I mean, Mac can attest to, there's nothing like letting go in the launch of a Pro Mod car.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's that and every run is something different. It's never, I mean, you're always something going on. You're always doing something. It's not, I say this and some people may not like to hear it, but I think you could put a motherfucking monkey on a goddamn drag bike and send him down a racetrack, and as long as it don't do nothing crazy, it doesn't matter who rides it.
I would agree.
But the car is something different. The car is definitely something that if it gets out of shape, you better not try to drive through it, because that motherfucker will teach you that you're fucking up. And
my personal opinion, you tell me, Rob, if you agree with this, like a blower car, and I don't know with the nitrous car, I haven't driven one to date, but 3.3 to 3.6 G's at the hit, but the 3 G's negative when you throw the chutes in the quarter mile, even in the eighth of a mile, to me is that much more exhilarating and scary, because let's say you throw 2 chutes, and I had full-size chutes. I didn't have the baby chutes that you run to save weight and all that.
if one blossom's high, the car's up, it's moving.
Pick the car up.
Yeah, so the negative G's, you're shutting things down, turning fuel pumps off, and you know, to me that was more exhilarating than the launch. What about you?
My first quarter-mile pass didn't go as planned.
I remember, yeah.
So I went through the quarter-mile and the fucking chutes didn't open, and I had put in the launch button on the steering wheel.
Air chutes.
Yeah, so I was like, oh shit, let me just put
That's
this
not so
button
bad.
on there because now I don't have to take my hand off and find the lever and throw the chutes. I can just hit the button.
Yeah.
Well, it was my first quarter-mile pass, and
what'd you run?
6:28.
Okay.
I think at
2:18.
I think, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I go through and I hadn't been in the quarter you had, and you were like, man, when you throw the chutes, it's gonna feel like it throws you through the windshield.
Yeah.
You know, and I had run the 8th mile pass. I made plenty of 8th mile passes. You know, and most time 8th mile you only throw one chute because you don't want to get stopped on the track.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going down through there, first quarter-mile pass. I hit the button. I'm like,
That
I
ain't
don't
so
feel
bad.
nothing. Hit the button again. I'm like, hit the button again a third time. Well, now I've done past the guy that had ran like a 590 in front of me. I done passed this motherfucker. Like he's sitting still. And now I start thinking to myself, how am I going to get this thing stopped? You know, thank God I was at Budds Creek. The track's so fucking long.
Yeah.
So when they say everything slows down, it literally slowed down to like a crawl. I remember hitting the button, and I reached up and I was trying to pull the lever, and
Cable yourself.
It wouldn't. It was locked up.
Wow.
And what had happened is when we put the air launcher on there, the bolt that went through the air launcher had got on the opposite side of the cage.
Oh wow.
So when you pulled everything back and
It was just
packed the chutes, the crossbars here, the bolt was hitting here, so it wouldn't let it go. So I'm pulling. So I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do? I'm like, I got to take my hands off the steering wheel, and I'm thinking, the fuck. So I take my hands off the steering wheel, and I guess I must have pulled down on enough, and it come through finally through. Well, by this time, I'm at the end of the Jersey wall.
Yeah.
And literally now I'm on the brakes. The whole time I'm thinking to myself, where am I going to put this thing? Because this, and I keep thinking this is going to hurt.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going to, I don't want to run into the fucking barrels because I feel like I'm going to go, that's just going to tear up. Yeah. So I'm trying to think, do I go around them? What do I do? Now I finally get the thing. I don't want to get on the brakes and have it start hopping because the tires will roll up and it'll start hopping. Thank God I got down towards the thing, and at the last minute something was kind of dumb, but I literally turned the wheel and the car turned and kind of skidded. It was like, whoop, 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 and it went up on the side like it was going to go over, and then it came back down. And
that's awesome.
I forget the guy's name.
But
I forget the guy's name that he used to work at the track. He passed away, but he was one of the EMTs. He came down there, and he was like, oh my God, man, are you all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. I got out of the car. I was like, yeah, I'm all right. And he's like, dude, when you passed, we were at the ET shack. When you came by us, you had to be going 240 miles an hour.
Yeah.
He goes, we were like, holy shit, he's going off the end of the racetrack.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just, at that point there, I was like, I don't know how much I really want to run quarter mile. This might
scary.
Be a little bit much.
Yeah.
And you see all these guys that run off the end of the racetrack. Yeah. Cameron Caruso's dad, Mark.
Yeah, Mark.
I mean, seeing him do that and go off the end of the track at fucking 260 mile an hour.
He broke his back.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
Quarter mile is a whole nother world.
It is. For me, don't get me wrong. I always shifted my car. I'm not bragging by any stretch of imagination. I didn't have auto shift in it. It was a 3-speed Linko. So it was 2 shifts. I had been 412, 176. So to hit the shift button 3 times on a bike was like, that was work. 2 times in 5 seconds, I got this. I'm waiting on light, but the chutes coming out, when you get 1,200 feet, if you're making power, and I'm not by any stretch of imagination, I ran these numbers in 2016, so we're working on a decade ago. But all I can tell you is the numbers that Ricky Smith and, all these badass quarter mile racers, all the Bahrain ones, Stevie Fast, honestly, what they're doing in the quarter of a mile is straight insane. Camp Stanley and them guys run 550s back in the day. what was their mile an hour? 265?
Yeah.
270? I've been 241 top. It wasn't my ET at the same time to run that top speed, but yeah, you get 1,200 foot and that thing's skating, and all I recall in my memory is holding my hand on that lever going, we're almost there, we're almost there, we're almost there.
Yeah, that's what you start doing. You start literally going, you know, when you get past the 8th mile, you're just...
No man's land.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God, just let this fucking thing stay together. Let's let it stay together.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know, the fast I went was I think 6:04 at 2:28, 2:30, something like that.
Yeah.
And literally, that's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, that's the part I didn't like, was like, it sounds like the engine is
angry.
Oh
and
my
about
God,
to
it
come
just
apart.
sounds. Yeah, it's like you're just waiting for it to go.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
And you're just like, God, let me lift off.
It's like, you want to scream. So
Yeah.
that takes me to career best of the 8th of a mile in the black hammer car.
372.
372,
Yeah.
204?
202.
202.
Yeah.
Man, what's the 330 in the short on that?
Best we've been is 249.
That's stout. Yeah. And bar setter in that class, and you can't really, bar setter is Halsey.
Yeah.
You know, for lack of better terms. And of course, Jake Cox and those front running guys, but 57, 58 they've been best.
What there?
Jim Halsey.
ET?
No, ET. Yeah, 358, 359.
59, I think.
59.
I think
So,
59.
average
maybe
now,
a 58. Halsey's been the fastest.
So average in pro nicers with Franklin and all them, if you want to front run 365, is that fair to say?
Now that they put the big
That's what I
runners
mean.
in.
Yeah.
Last year you were 67, 68 was usually the top.
So you're tickling with the front, man.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't been able to figure out the 330.
Yeah.
I mean, 60 foot wise, we've been 921.
Yeah.
You know, which, I mean, for the most part, you know, we're usually one of the front runners in the 60 foot. I just wish that's all we ran.
Yeah, hey, you know, I go all the way back to, again, I know I sound like a bench racer, but I did do it back in 2016 with my own program. I worked it all out that if nothing was torn up, it was $1,200 to $1,500 per pass.
Yeah, I don't even check on
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest anyone ever does that.
No, I don't.
I was fortunate enough to lease Adam Flamhock's car and literally get to, you know, a 366 207, and that, to me, the amount of money and time and effort is running on the ragged edge, because the very next round we bent the wishbone and damn near hit the wall. For anyone that's out here running these numbers, you need to understand the amount of support and money that it takes is astronomical.
Oh, it's insane. I mean, it really, you know, to especially like some of the, I mean, if you want to, we just do this, I mean, for fun. You know, it's really I don't have, you know, I mean,
money. We do it
my team consists of me, Donnie Thompson, my crew chief, and T. Parker, you know,
long time guy.
T's been with me. T's been with me for years. Yeah. And you know, Randy Hoffman sometimes.
Yeah, Randy's a good guy.
Will come and help us.
Got a badass grudge car, Randy, and you're fast. So yeah, a lot of knowledge there.
But you know, we don't test it as, you know, we're dealing with. I mean, I don't know what everybody makes. I don't, and it's not even saying. I'm not on the level of some of these guys.
Yeah.
But some people ask me like, why don't some go grudge racing and stuff?
Yeah.
And not to even knock the grudge racers, but the reason that I run the class, you know, that I do, and not just go top sportsman racing or whatever, was always because
elite top sportsman.
I always just want to see where I fit in, and I feel like, you know, if
you've always been a class racer.
I've always tried to chase the fastest guys, you know, even in Outlaw and all the other classes that I ran. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to, you know, I just want to know where I fit in with the faster guys, you know. And I mean, we should have won, you know, it is what it is. We possibly should have won Maple Grove 2 years ago.
Yeah. Went semifinals, right?
Yeah, semifinals, and then the fucking trans break, let's go.
Stupid shit.
Yeah, so little things like that. But just to be able to go round, if you can go rounds in this class, you're doing something. Only because it's just, I mean, it's the best of the best when it comes to nitrous cars. And that's the one thing that I like, is that you really, until they change the rules for the engine size, which is, you know, that's my biggest issue.
So it's like ADRL
Yeah,
Pro Extreme motorcycle all over again.
Well, it's
you want some
what I don't really understand is you have a class that has run for the last 5-6 years with the same rules.
Gotcha.
And everybody now the class is starting to bunch up. So you get the guys in the back, the Dane Woods, the Billy Alberts, the guys that aren't the top 4 guys. Let's say the 4 guys in the class will be last couple of years have been Halsey, Cox, Franklin, and Rainey. Okay, so those 4 guys.
Yep.
Not knocking anybody else. But those 4 guys are normally the top 4.
Sure.
And everybody's kind of been catching up. Like if their number 1 qualifier is a 67, 68, and you got say number 13 and 14 are 71, 72. You got all these cars bunched together.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden they come out with this new rule.
1,000 cubic inches.
Yeah, now you can be 1,000 cubic inches.
Yeah.
And
yours is a 9.
We're 942.
Okay.
So we're the smallest engine in the class already. We're behind. But my engine builder, Sandy Wilkins, just feels like it's better to have a thicker sleeve because when you're pouring that much nitrous to them, the sleeves get out of round so easily. Yeah. And it's just longevity on the engine.
For sure.
And I really do believe that I think we can run a 68. We have to get that 330 time. We have to be able to be 240. If we can go 247, we're in 248. We'll be in the 60s. Yeah. And to me, that's my goal. That's been my goal along is to be able to go 360s because there's very few people with a nitrous car that have been in the 60s. So I mean, I'm not talking
with any application.
I'm not talking about the blower cars because they make ungodly amount of horsepower.
They do.
But for a nitrous car to go 360s, I don't think people really realize what it takes to do it, and the maintenance and
in between maintenance.
Yeah, in between maintenance and just having the car work the way it needs to work.
Absolutely. I agree.
So I mean, that's the thing. I love the class. I'm probably fucking retarded for keep running it, to be honest with you.
You've done that in every class though, man.
I'm the last one to bail usually. So
hey, I'm just, I'm personally happy for you with switching all your bikes. When I say your bikes, your personal bikes, Top Sportsman 460, Tony's 460 bike, all to Fuel Tech, and you have beat your head against the fucking wall all year long, and you got it. Yeah. So, I'm happy for all the people that struggled. I mean, I've watched so many people, and I don't want to say that arrogantly, but so many people struggle, and when they find their way, no matter what class that is, man, I understand what that feels like because unbeknownst to most, I don't want to say unbeknownst, most people know me, and like, if it ain't working, you can own it. I just raffled off Hutch, one of my favorite bikes, but, for you just beat that rock till it cracks. Yeah. So there's a lot to be said there.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I think sometimes I'm just too goddamn stupid. I really do. I think I'm so hard-headed that I want to. Yeah. I want it so bad. Yeah. And it's just and like I said,
we all do.
It's if you just if I got that win, just to feel that for putting all the time and effort and everything into it, it does take a lot to do what we do in that class, and it's like I said, it's not fun. It's not, and that's the thing. I don't care, especially when you're in a situation that me or some of the other guys that run the class. Yeah. It's not fun when you're getting your teeth kicked in by the guys, and then all of a sudden
coming back.
They go, and I say it all the time. I feel like, for you guys that know Charlie Brown and the Peanuts, Lucy's holding the football right here, and here I am getting close. I go a 72, and then all of a sudden they go.
Yeah.
Oh well, you got to kick now. Yeah, you got to kick it here now.
It's like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah, and it's like, when do you get to the point where you realize that you're not going to be able to compete with people that can, I don't care what rule you throw at them. Yeah. You can say, hey, you got to do a 2,000 cubic inch motor, and they'd be like, all right, give me 2 of them. Yeah. And it's.
First to finish racing, I think, on any level, cars, bikes, snowmobiles, doesn't matter what the fuck it is, money's gonna take a front lead.
Right.
Because even if the guy with the money, and I'm guilty of being that same guy, if I don't have the know-how, I pay a motherfucker that does. Yeah. So it's just that simple. Just pay someone.
Yeah. And that's really what it comes down to. I mean, it really. I mean, we've for what we have and what we've done. I think we're,
done well.
Yeah. And it's like I said. I just think. me and Donnie have said all the time. We're just like, me and him are just two of the same guy that, like him, you know, he's a racer. We met in Qatar, and he literally, he says it all the time too. He just wants to win, man. He's like, I know we have the ability to do it. But it's never going to be easy. And he said, you know, everybody all the time comes in and is like, you know, oh, did y'all win? No, we didn't win. And they're like, oh man, that sucks, you know. And he's like, man, you just don't realize what it takes to win in that class. You know, it really, I mean, if you really sit down and look at, if you just went for the last 5 years, look at how many people have actually won races. There's probably, I mean, if you 5 years, 50 races, let's say there's 10 races a year, there's probably less than 10 people that have won those 50 races.
Okay, so let's parlay that in motorcycle racing. Is that fair to say the same? In a 460 class or a top 4 class?
So.
Do you think there's that many more multitudes?
No, I think there is. I mean, I think I think the reason being is because there's, when you have an index class or a bracket class or something. Now, now you can look at like a Rodney Williford. I mean, I don't know.
That guy's an anomaly. Yeah. All he does is make kids and win ProStar.
Right, yeah.
I don't know what you do for a living, but I'm thinking it's
I know what he does. He fucks.
He just throws out greatness.
Sorry, Rodney.
Twins.
Yeah, I Jesus Christ.
So having said that, and I'm not trying to parlay that into any amount of weird, but I'm going to try to wrap this up, but of all the kids that you have, which I'm not even going to begin to count them, I know them all. The only one, and I don't want to say the only one, because you have kids, much like I do, that are a fan of racing, but you have one kind of following into the footsteps.
I have 3, if I had to say, I have 3 kids that have been more into racing than the rest. Okay. So Lauren was always into racing.
Of course. Yeah.
Curtis, not so much. Curtis liked to come to the racetrack and hang out with everybody and watch Billy Stewart do Billy Stewart.
Yes, that's Curtis.
Things. So Curtis loved that.
Yeah.
Brooklyn always loved racing. Brooklyn would go anywhere. She wanted to go to every race. Yeah. She's never, but I bought her a junior dragster back in the day, and she never really wanted my kids. I don't just give them everything. Yeah. I told them, I bought the junior dragster, and I told her, look, the only way this junior dragster is going to the racetrack is if you come down here and you wash it, wax it, learn to work on it, take care of things. You're going to help load it up in the trailer. You're going to do all these things.
Yeah.
And we took it to the racetrack. I let Rico Brown, Boo's son, he raced it once. He was
10 at the time?
Yeah, he raced it once. And Aiden Shahady raced it once.
Shahady, yeah.
So both of them raced it, and then Brooklyn finally, she was like, "Oh, I want to race and everything." I bought her for Christmas. Bought her all the, she'd outgrown the stuff when I bought it.
Yeah.
The car sat for like 4 or 5 years. She's like 13. Yeah. She wants to race it, so she comes down the racetrack. She finally does it. She races it.
Yeah.
And again, she was like, oh, I'm racing. I think she just liked telling everybody how she liked to, she was, I'm racing junior dragsters.
Yeah.
But again, the car comes out of the trailer, goes in the shop. She don't do nothing with it. So it sat there. She kept saying, "Well, when are you gonna take me down to race again?"
Yeah.
Like, you don't come down to the shop to work on it, it ain't going to the track.
I commend you for that. Yeah.
And she never did. So finally, just one day, I put it online. Somebody drove down, and a local guy come down and bought it. And she come down. She was like, "What are you doing with my junior dragster?" I'm like, "It's out of here. You don't ride it." I said, "You're getting ready to turn 16 coming up. Yeah. You're gonna want a car. That junior dragster is now going towards your car."
That's it.
And
so now moving forward, you're remarried.
Now I'm remarried.
Yes.
I have 2 other beautiful daughters that are now part of my life. Yeah. And Presley had a junior dragster also. Okay. Robert, her father, Robert Patrick, they got her one. I don't think she ever raced it. I think she was she was doing her beauty pageants and stuff like that. Yeah. So she never raced it. I think they ended up selling it, and then now we have Bristol.
How old's Bristol?
Bristol is 12, going to be 13.
She's a firecracker. 20. Just so y'all know.
Yes.
I don't know her very well, but what I do know, she's a firecracker. Yes. I'm guessing she gets that from Crystal.
Bristol, she's Crystal's twin.
There you go.
She's literally her twin. But her father, Robert his parents got Bristol a junior dragster.
Purvis Ford on the side,
yeah.
of course. If for some viewers that don't know, I know my car viewers, drag cycling cars, knows who Robert Patrick is. Extreme Pro Stock, Pro Nitrous, kind of been there and done that with door cars.
Yeah. I mean, he's been a Pro Stock champion.
100%. Yeah, he's a badass.
He's won a bunch of Pro Nitrous races and stuff.
Yeah.
He's back to running
Extreme Pro Stock. Yeah.
So Robert calls Crystal up when he buys the car. He has it painted to match his Pro Stock car.
For sure.
And invites me and Crystal over to bring Bristol over to show
present it. That's awesome. Yeah.
So it's been good. Her having that has really been exciting for everybody. The whole family's kind of been getting behind it. We all went down to her first real race. Like she went to a couple other races, just getting her feet wet, and she ends up going all the way to the final.
That's awesome.
So that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I kept telling Crystal, and I told Bristol after the fact. Bristol was just happy. Like she won her first round. She was like, "Oh, I just won." Yeah. Everybody else is nervous. Yeah. She was as cool as a cucumber. Dude. She was she didn't care. She was in line. She'd walk up, say hi, good luck, and go up, get in the car. She'd sit there, and everybody else is like pacing.
Yeah, that's the right.
And I would walk over and look at her, and I'm like, you good? She's like, yeah. And I kind of was trying to help her with her lights and everything.
Yeah.
And every round she'd get out. She goes, "Hey, I don't care. I just won second round. That's further than I've ever went. Hey, I just won third round. That's as long." And she ended up having to go like 6 rounds.
Yeah.
She, I think there was like 90 some cars there. And she's sitting there, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, you're in the final. You're gonna win." She goes, "I don't care if I win or not." She goes, "I've been this far. I've never been this far. That's all that matters." Yeah. So she ends up. The girl that beats her goes 002 on the tree.
Oh wow, what are you gonna do?
And Bristol, I think Bristol missed the tree. Had like a 120 lane. The girl ends up beating her.
Yeah.
So she got down she came back. She's like, "Hey, it doesn't matter." Everybody else was like, "Oh, you good job." She was like, "Hey, I know I did good. I made it all the way to the finals."
Yeah. Nobody else was there.
Then it set in.
Oh.
So now during the week, they got another race that's coming up like a week away or 2 weeks away. So Robert calls me. He's like, "We're going to go to this race again." I'm like, "All right, we'll meet you down there."
Yeah.
And Bristol's, what race was it? I'm trying to think what it was. Well, Bristol's with me. We're riding down the track, and she's like, "Yep, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to win this race." And I'm like, "Oh, you're going to win this? Are you going to win this race, huh?"
Okay.
She's like, "Yeah." She goes, "I made it to the finals last time." I said, "Let me explain something to you."
Yeah.
I said, "That seems so easy, right?" And she was like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And I said, "There's going to be a whole lot of days that you leave and you've lost first round."
Yes, sir.
And she was like, "Nuh-uh." I'm like, "Okay." I said, "I'm telling you right now." I said, "I told your mom that this might have been the worst thing to ever happen, that you made it all the way to the finals."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Why?"
She ate the best lasagna.
I said, "Because now all you think is, oh, this is easy."
Yeah.
I said, "You have to realize you just started. These kids that run Junior Dragster are murderers."
Yeah.
I said, "They kill the tree.
Yeah.
They've been doing this for years."
Yeah.
And I said, "You watch."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Nah." She went up there first round and got waxed. She came back.
Humble pie, y'all.
Yeah, she came back and she was like so distraught. She was like, "I lost first round." I'm like, "You better get used to it."
0-0.
She balled back in and she won.
Oh shit!
She won second round. She won and got into second round. She won re-entry.
Yeah.
Got into second round.
She got that second shot.
Got second round.
Okay,
She's like, I'm going up there. She went up there and got waxed again. And she come back and she was just like you said, humble pie. She was just like, "Man, I'm doing terrible now."
Yeah.
And I told her on the way home, I said, "Look, I told you. It seems like it's easy, but
it's
to win in any of this stuff is never easy."
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, some people make it look easy, like
it's not.
Ronnie makes it look really easy, but again,
he put so much time in that I'm not one of those. I think a lot of people, and I would equate Ronnie to our John Force, for lack of better terms. And I tell him this to his face. I'm not kissing his ass by any stretch of imagination, but what I know about Ronnie, core person,
and people like Ronnie, they put the time in behind the scenes. Yeah. So they make it look easy because they put the time in, you know, whether it be money, you know, just research into everything, studying their opponent.
Oh, dude, years ago, let me tell a story before we're going to rewind this down.
Yeah.
Years ago, I got into fucking RC cars.
Yeah, you talked to me about it. I was like, I'm not getting into it.
I got into RC cars, and I went up to a hobby shop. I bought an RC car. Well, in the back of this hobby shop, they had a fucking racetrack out back. So I go out there, and I'm fucking going around. And I'm having a fucking blast. And I'm going back inside, and I'm buying tires, and I'm buying stuff for all this car.
Just getting hooked.
Now, next thing you know, I talk Ronnie into it. And Ronnie's like, man, he goes up there. He buys a fucking car. Well, I ain't got to tell you. This motherfucker goes from buying a car. First, I'm not buying a car, to buying a car. We're going there. Before we were literally going to MIR to race, we would go there on a Saturday morning with our fucking motorhomes and trailers, pull in the parking lot back, race there. Well, this motherfucker gets out. He's buying chassis jigs. He's buying shock. He's buying shock fucking scent, like he's changing the oil in his shocks. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing all this for? But he's doing it because he's doing this shit that you're not going to do to win. Yeah. And that's kind of always who he's been, man.
So I mean, anyone that hates on him, you know, one of the things, and by no stretch of imagination, I kissing Ronnie's ass. Ronnie's not a shit talker. I know I am a bit of one. Ronnie is not a shit talker. His actions on the track show it. So what's he need to say? And what I think people fail to realize is the research and the time and the effort he puts into everything. And I think every champion does that. Wouldn't know anything because I'm not. You know,
I'm the same way. I mean, I've finished second. I just ain't never sealed the deal. And my whole thing has always been like with me and Ronnie back in the day. You know, he would finish first, I'd finish second. Me too. But my excuse was, well, I don't race all the races because I wasn't chasing that. I was chasing to go fast. I just had He was chasing trophies. I was chasing ETs.
Well, I think if you're going to differentiate the two, you guys have incredible qualities in your own lane and your own accomplishments and your own ETs and your big picture of it. There is a difference, and I'm just like you. I want to go fast. I want to do shit different. I got into cars and I enjoyed it. And once I got that win, it's like, okay, I got a picture and a video, and sadly enough, my ex-wife took the trophy. So, fuck you, is what I have to say to her. But anyway, so I have the Pro Mod. No, it's not that Pro Mod, but the Pro Mod car, I got the second trophy on that. So, total sidebar, Rob. To wrap this up, you want to thank your family, your sponsors?
Definitely. My family, Crystal, all the girls.
There's so many of them.
Yeah.
There's so many. Girl dad.
But that's another, I swear I told him the other day, girls are such a curse to dad. They're great when they're little, but once they become teenagers, man, it's the biggest curse. If you
that's where you're
I'm just going to leave it there. I'm just going to leave it there.
Sponsors.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Tony Tall, Robert A. Tall Plumbing. Yeah. Tony has come on board the last couple of years, and I've known Tony since I started racing
early 90s.
And he
awesome guy.
He's great. Takes helps me out tremendously. Full spectrum batteries.
Great.
I mean, I kind of drug him into the car world.
You did,
bikes,
it's awesome for Jason.
Yeah, it's been great. I love to see friends do great things. And, I think he's gonna be the battery to have. I mean,
I agree.
Ricky Smith now has one, so
I agree. That should say enough.
Yeah, that says a lot. Hunnicutt Glass, of course. I wouldn't be able to do any of it without them.
Yeah.
Cliff's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Yeah.
Cliff's been with me since racing bikes. He was probably one of my first actual sponsors that actually gave me money.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
We grew up together. We used to live a couple houses down from each other. And if you knew Cliff back in the day, you never would have thought Cliff would amount to anything.
I think that's us too.
And he's
and
he awesome. Is killing it.
Good for Cliff. I don't know you, Cliff, but
it's
good
definitely,
for you.
It's good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people that have helped me Sandy Wilkins Racing Engines.
Yeah.
I've never had somebody that's so thorough and
Good.
just a wealth of knowledge and
Yeah.
a racer himself, and he takes care of me. I mean, just without any doubt on that. Pickle
Good.
Race Cars.
Yeah.
Brandon Schweitzer from Schweitzer Dynamics. He has helped us out. It's not really a sponsor, but I mean,
Knowledge
he's helped
is
us. Yeah,
everything.
he's helped us out.
Yeah.
Bruce Mullins, painted the car for us.
Yeah.
Did a great job. Always, he's painted a couple things for me and does
Great
job.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, Legion of Doom, just the support from everybody.
Yeah.
It's good.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not kissing your ass, but you're an icon in the sport, whether it be motorcycles or cars. No, you are. I don't throw legend around like an icon. Everyone knows who you are. I can honestly attest to now with this new podcast, this new YouTube. I go down to the racetrack. Well, Hunnicutt glasses everywhere. So we all, myself included, thank you for your sponsorship of the racetrack and Royce Miller and all the Millers at MIR. We're fortunate enough that that's our local racetrack, and they're a top flight facility. So to wrap this up for me, I personally want to thank Rick Smith Racing Engines for always helping me out. Monster Race Products, XTA, Jason Miller, Chris Miller, Dave, Jimmy, all those guys there are unbelievable. Tyler Crossano at PDRA really kind of helped me out with this new deal that I'm doing, and they run a first class show. The Franklins, both Tommy, and Judy are just unbelievable. And McAdams Motorsports, and of course drag cycling cars.
Elite 460.
Elite 460 is huge, and I was going to wrap up with Elite 460. And guys, stay tuned. This is going to get big. My guy James Young does all my production and editing. Would never begin to take credit for that. So if you guys really sat through, I'm guessing 3 hours. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm going to keep this coming next week at XDA, biggest race of the year, WPGC Bike Fest. I'm going to have tons of footage, tons of videos, tons of stuff. Tune into my YouTube, my podcast, Drag Cycling Cars. Thank you, Robbie. I appreciate you being here, brother.
All right, guys.
Man, thank you.